Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto is grandson of Madara and carry his legacy? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Yami Naruto for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. 4th Hokage Minato, back away from the Jinchuriki or your son dies at the ripe old age of 1 minute, the masked intruder said to the blonde-haired Hokage while holding a kunai over a newborn baby. Said the baby had the same shade of blonde hair like the 4th Hokage's father. The little guy was sleeping peacefully, not knowing what kind of dangerous situation he was in. Minato was a fairly tall, fair-skinned man who shared physical appearance with his son. Both of them had bright, blue eyes and blonde hair. How did he break thought the barrier? Who the hell is this guy, he thought without taking his eyes from the stranger who was holding his newborn son, Naruto, as a hostage. That was when he heard a scream of his wife. He quickly turned and looked at his wife to make sure she was alright. Uzumaki Kushina, who was also happened to be the second Jinchuriki of the nine-tailed fox, was barely holding the seal that had weakened because of childbirth. She had a slender but feminine build, fair skin, violet eyes, fiery red hair, a common trait among the members of the Uzumaki clan, with strands that framed both sides of her face and a black clip that parted her hair to the left, keeping it out of her eyes. The seal's not done, Minato thought. He was worried the fox could break the seal holding him captive and escape from it. Kushina screamed again as Nine-Tail forced more chakra to escape from his prison. Kushina, Minato said as he worried for safety of his son and wife. Back away from the Jinchuriki, or don't you care if your son dies? The masked intruder asked again, his words becoming more impassioned as time passed. Hold it, Jay, just calm down. Minato said with worry laced into his voice as he held his left hand up in a placating gesture. You should take your own advice, Minato. I'm perfectly calm, the masked man said, and he tossed baby Naruto up. Naruto. Kushina cried out in terror at the thought of her child being hurt. The masked man attacked with his kunai toward the baby's aerial form, but acting quickly, Minato disappeared and reappeared behind the masked man, holding his son in his hand. You live up to the Yellow Flash moniker, the man said calmly. He was clearly impressed by Minato's speed. But what now? Minato looked down in horror as he found exploding tags on the blanket. Tag blasted off. Naruto. Minato. Kushina screamed in horror. Minato flew out of the smoke and debris with unharmed Naruto in his arms. His three-pronged kunai was sticking into the ground just a few meters away from him. He looked down at his son and said with a great relief after seeing him unharmed. Thank God you're not hurt, oh. He cried in pain. He looked down at his leg to see a splinter of wood stuck in his leg. He gasped as he took it out. He's after Kushina, he forced me to use my flying thunder god technique to separate us, gotta hurry. Throwing the splinter of wood that had stuck in his leg, he disappeared with his son and reappeared in his safe house that was somewhere on the outskirts of the Hidden Leaf village that he had utilized in case of an emergency. Meanwhile, with Kushina, the masked man had bound her to several large rocks by the seal that imprisoned the nine tails. She stood in the center of the rocks and stared at the man before her, while sweat dripping down her face from the exhaustion of giving birth. What are you after? She asked, panting tiredly. I came to rip the nine tails from your stomach and use it to crush the leaf, the masked man answered simply. What? Kushina exclaimed. Her panting had been becoming worse. Minato's teleportation technique uses a special marking that lets him instantly move from one marking to the next, the man said in a neutral tone while looking at the seal on Kushina's stomach. I see he's incorporated it into the design of your seal, so he would always be there to protect you, but I managed to get away from him. And the seal has been greatly weakened from the birth. He looked up at her. His lone eyes turned red with 3 tomo circling the pupil Sharingan. Do you have any idea how long I've waited for this moment? His tone of last sentence caused Kushina's eyes to widen in shock. You'll be safe here. Minato laid the newborn son onto a small bed with rails surrounding the sides. You'll wait on your own for a little bit, Naruto. He covered his son with a blanket to keep him warm. I've gotta go save your mom before it's too late. He looked at the sleeping face of his son for last time before flashing away. Back with Kushina, the masked man was inside of her seal where the nine-tailed fox tied to a large rock with chains and stakes, piercing each of his tails. The man focused his lone Sharingan eyes at the fox as the beast tried to his best to nullify the effects of Sharingan. However, in the end, he failed. His large slitted eyes changed into the pattern of 3 tomo, which eventually faded back in the background. The nine tails roared, breaking all registrations that held him to the massive rock, and started to melt. Outside the seal, however, Kushina screamed as the violent red bubbles of chakra exploded from her body, feeling like she was being burned alive. Come forth, nine-tailed fox. The masked man shouted as he placed his hands in the seal. With a mighty ground-shaking roar of the tremors, the nine-tailed fox emerged from his host, reappearing in the real world once again after a century. "We head for the Hidden Leaf Village," the masked stranger commanded before turning to walk away from there. Stop." Kushina breathed out tiredly while trying to stand up on her feet. The man turned around to see Kushina survived the extraction of her tailed beast. "The Uzumaki clan is really something special. Even wrenching a tailed beast out of your body didn't kill you right anyway," he said. He turned to his new pet once again. "It's only fitting for the Nine Tails to kill his former Jinchuriki." The Nine Tails lifted one of his large claws and slashed down with intending to kill his former host. As his large paw smashed down at the rock she was on, a flash of yellow proceeded. The paw smashed place, but Kushina disappeared before she could crush under it. As the dust settled, Minato was crouching on top of a large tree, holding his wife against himself. "A small flash of hope, but it's too late," the masked man said after watching the failed attempt of the demon fox. "Minato, is Naruto okay?" Kushina strenuously breathed out. Her face was devoid of life that was extracted out of her with the beast. Bags had gathered under her eyes and mixed that with the sweating and weary look on her face, it made her look slightly older than the young beautiful woman she was. Minato answered as he grinned, trying to put on his bravado face. "Yes, he's fine. I hid him somewhere safe." "Oh, thank God." Kushina breathed a sigh of relief before she looked at her husband. "Minato, stop him, stop the Nine Tails," she warned, a slight tone of worry in her usual cheerful voice. "They're headed for the village." Minato looked at his wife for a second before teleporting again. The man raised an eyebrow behind his mask. "Gone again, no matter, onto the leaf," he said with a faraway gaze into the distance. Minato appeared in the same room he had come before, but this time instead of Naruto, he had a tired Kushina in his arms. "Why?" Kushina asked. "Never mind why, just stay with Naruto," Minato said as he set Kushina down on the bed next to sleeping Naruto. "Naruto," Kushina whispered as she hugged her son with a brilliant smile despite the situation. She wrapped an arm around him as he lay beneath the blanket. She pulled him close and the side of his head rested against her own. "Minato, thank you, good luck." She closed her eyes and slept peacefully beside her son. Minato clenched his fists in determination as he rose from his place. Going over to the wall where a coat was hung up, he grabbed it and swung it around to wear it. The trench coat had crimson fire licking the bottom with the kanji for 4th Hokage vertically stitched on the back. "I'll be back before you know it," he said to his wife. He flashed away to stop the masked man and the nine-tailed fox and save his village. The man who had attacked the 4th Hokage and his family and extracted the 9 tails from Kushina appeared just inside the village's walls. He slammed his hand on the ground. Summoning jutsu. He unleashed the monstrous beast inside the territory of the Hidden Leaf. The fox roared while his tail smashed buildings and crushed mountains true to his legend, causing mass debris to fly away in various directions. Some of the villagers, who weren't caught in the initial assault, looked up at the fox in pure, unadulterated fear. Attack, Demon Fox. 3rd Hokage Zama. One of the Leaf Anbu appeared beside the previous Hokage, 3rd Hokage, Saratobi Hiruzen, who had dressed in the battle suit. "It's the 9 tails. The 9 tails attacked the village out of nowhere." "I know. I'll hold it back, gather, and protect civilians," Hiruzen said while placing his battle-worn bracer on his right forearm. "Yes sir," the Anbu responded and he disappeared as quickly as he had arrived. The former Hokage gazed at the giant beast while thinking, did Kushina's seal fail? Were all the safeguards we put in the place really not enough? Minato appeared on the top of his head that carved into the Hokage mountain. Looking around from the top of the mountain, he could clearly see the 9 tails had been summoned in the center of the village. The fox immediately noticed Minato's presence and turned his attention toward the blonde Hokage. "So you noticed me already," Minato said. He saw the fox had begun to accumulate his chakra to the mouth, condensing it into a large and a lethal ball of energy. "Not on my watch." The 9-tailed fox fired a tailed beast ball toward the 4th from his giant mouth. At the same time, Minato spread his hands out with one of his special kunai held out horizontally. An invisible barrier formed in front of him with a mass intricate pattern of seals suspending in midair. The wall absorbed the attack until there was nothing left. In the forest, not far from him, the same barrier opened up and set off an explosion that rocked the village from the distant and decimated the forest that caught in the blast. Below the Hokage monument, the Leaf Shinobis watched the tailed beast ball vanished into some kind of barrier. It stopped the 9 tails attack that was a space-time barrier jutsu. A red-headed man with purple markings on his cheek said. His name was Akimichi Chauza, the 15th head of the Akimichi clan. Nara Shikaku, the head of the Nara clan, said, "It's Minato. Everyone move out." Hiruzen ordered. Back with Minato, he was preparing to teleport to Hiruzen's side. "I have to tell 3rd what happened." Suddenly, the same masked man who was responsible for everything rose up from the top of the fourth's face on the mountain. Sensing the man behind him, Minato arched his whole body in rotator motion and tried to slash his three-pointed kunai into the man's head. However, it just phased through the man's head, causing Minato's eyes widen in shock. "You will face me," the masked man said, grabbing Minato's wrist, the one that had gone through his head. "And we're done." Suddenly, Minato's form started to become distorted and began to suck into what looked like some sort of vortex that had opened up from the masked man's eyehole. Before he could suck inside completely, he teleported. "Talk about fast," the masked man said, shocked at seeing someone had countered his jutsu. He narrowed his lone eye. "Next time, I'll wrap you the moment I lay my hand on you." Minato landed with a crash at a different section of the forest, with one of his kunai stabbing into the ground beside him. He grunted while standing up. My attack slipped right through him. But a moment later he was solid and trying to suck me into some dimension or something. What was that move, he thought. A swirling vortex appeared in front of him, and a moment later, the same masked man appeared, shocking the fourth Hokage. "You won't escape me," he told Minato. Does he use a space-time jutsu too? Whatever he did, it must be how he moved so far after taking Kushina. Minato's mind began to race with possibilities. He narrowed his eyes at his foe. He defected Anbu under the direct command of the third, got past of most powerful, top secret barrier we have, and must have known the seal would be weak, while Kushina was giving birth. Then, with the seal undone, he took the 9 tails and marched straight into the leaf without so much as pausing to deal with the barrier. "There's only one man I can think of that makes sense." He summarized to himself deep in thought before looking up at the man and asked, "Are you Uchiha Madara?" He saw the man pulled his hood back to reveal short spiky black hair. "No, you couldn't be him. He's long dead." "Oh, I don't know about that," the masked man taunted. "On second thought, it doesn't matter who you are," Minato said. "But why have you attacked the leaf?" "Oh, you know it's fun. It's part of my plan," the masked man said, summoning a long chain. He attached at both ends of his wrists to start the war to bring the peace. Minato narrowed his eyes at the masked man further. Whoever he is. He's incredible. He can control the 9 tails, wield space-time jutsu that exceed both second and my own, and clearly has evil intentions, he thought. If I don't kill him now, he'll become a greater danger than the fox. He took his three-pointed kunai out. If I teleport back to the village, he'll follow me and things will get more chaotic. If he really is Madara, then I doubt he can summon the 9 tails very long. I'll just have to leave the village in the third's hands and finish him off right here. There's no hope any of you," the masked man declared, and he charged at Minato. Minato did the same, but the man became intangible again, allowing Minato to phase through him. The masked man solidified and spun around once Minato was behind him. He pulled a chain and wrapped Minato around the chest with it. However, Minato chucked his kunai to a section of the forest and flashed away, letting the chain simply float in the air. The masked man's eyes widened slightly. Minato flashed besides his three-pointed kunai and looked back at the man. He makes his body intangible to negate my attacks, and then solidifies to counterattack. My only shot is to try and trade hits with him, he thought. But attacking at all is a big risk for him. If he can keep the 9 tails summoned for short time, he won't want this fight drag on. He spun around and charged again. It comes down to speed, whoever strikes a split second earlier will win. As they both charged at each other, Minato threw one of his special kunai at the man who let it phase through him. They got even closer to each other, the kunai's end was almost all the way out the back of the man's head. The same man went to grab Minato's shoulder. Minato had already formed a large blue sphere, Rasengan. As the man was about to touch the fourth, the kunai slipped all the way out of his head. The masked man smiled behind his mask and said, "Gotch." In a split second, Minato vanished in a yellow flash, causing the man's eyes to widen. The blonde Hokage appeared behind the man and slammed the Rasengan down into the masked man's back before catching the kunai. The man screamed in the pain as he crushed into the ground. Damn it, he teleported to the kunai he just threw, he thought. That was the Flying Thunder God Jutsu level 2, Minato said proudly. When he looked down, his eyes narrowed. The Rasengan had exploded, literally destroying the ground, but the man had somehow teleported away. The masked man appeared on a slab of rock nearby. His arm was fluidly being separated out of his body, and a white substance was dripping from his wound, but before he could do anything about it, the fourth Hokage appeared in front of him and stabbed him in the stomach with a kunai, making him to spit blood into his mask. The Flying Thunder God Jutsu. He must have put that marking somewhere on my body, the masked man thought. Minato then placed his hand on the man's chest, where markings suddenly sprouted from looking like the markings fit for a seal. "The contract seal," the masked man said, as he recognized the seal. "Are you trying to pull the 9 tails free from my control?" "No, I already did," Minato said. "He's no longer in your weapon." In the distance where the nine-tailed fox was wreaking havoc, his eyes that held a Sharingan due to his mind being under control of it, reverted back to his red slit eyes. However, being tricked in such a way only caused his anger to grow more. The masked man jumped upward out of Minato's range. "You deserve the title of the fourth Hokage, managing to wound me and wrest the fox from my control in one move," he said. "But someday it will be mine again. The fox and this whole world will bow to my will." He began to wrap himself. "Many doors are still left open to me." He vanished by swirling into a vortex. Something tells me, Minato thought, he wasn't lying. He gazed at the place previously occupied by the masked man before disappearing in a flash. Minato flashed into the village to see the nine tails preparing for another tailed beast ball. Though he was glad third Hokage had managed to hold the fox, but he had no time for thinking about it. Biting his thumb to draw blood, he slammed it down on the ground. Summoning jutsu. There was a large puff of smoke that soon revealed a large, dull, rusty red-colored toad, Gamabunta, the chief toad of Mount Mamboku, in all his glory, who was barely holding the nine tails. Minato stood on the top of the chief toad as he looked at the nine tails, while thinking about the masked man's words. He clenched his eyes shut. "Sorry, Kushina." Looking down at the large toad, he said, "Hold the fox down for a minute." "Look, I may be big, but I'm not a miracle worker," Gamabunta said while trying to hold the nine tails down. "I need enough chakra to take him and that blast out of here." Minato shouted when he saw the nine tails preparing another bigger tailed beast ball. He quickly made some hand seals, and a moment later, he vanished with the nine tails, leaving the toad boss alone, who later disappeared in a puff of smoke. The third Hokage had been watching everything. "Minato, did he teleport himself and the nine tails?" he said. A part of the forest, which was a good distance away from him, exploded in a dome of light, most likely from the nine tails' attack. Out there. The place where the nine tails had been teleported, Minato appeared with his wife, Kushina, and his newborn son, Naruto, in his arms. "Gotta put a barrier," he said without taking his eyes from the nine tails. He placed Kushina down on the grass. "My chakra's almost drained," Kushina said, but she used her last bit of chakra to summon her chakra chains, as several golden chains shot from her back and wrapped around the fox's tails and body, pulling him to the ground. "Kushina!" Minato shouted, worriedly, that woke up baby Naruto from his peaceful sleep. He began to cry. "Sorry, Naruto, I didn't mean to wake you," Kushina said, blood dribbling from her mouth as she gave her son sad smile. Minato couldn't believe such a happy day of his life had turned out to be such a nightmare. "Kushina. I'll drag the nine tails back and die with it inside me. That'll prevent it from coming back for a while. It's the only way to you both with a little bit of chakra I have left," Kushina said as she looked at her husband and gave him a smile. "Thank you for everything. Kushina, you made me husband. You made me into the fourth Hokage," Minato said, tears sliding down on his cheeks. "You made me this boy's father and I." "Don't look sad, Minato. I'm happy," Kushina said as she gave her husband a weak smile. "Happy that you loved me." She turned her head around, softening her eyes at the sight of your crying son. There was a small smile on her lips, "Happy that it's our son's birthday. Like if I try to imagine surviving and three of us leaving together, I can't think of anything beyond I'd be happy." Tears continued to streak down Minato's face as he looked at his wife who was ready to sacrifice herself to both of them. Kushina looked at her son again. Her heart clenched just thinking about leaving her child. "If I had any regrets it would be that I won't see Naruto grow up," she said. Minato looked down as his hair shadowed his eyes. "Kushina, you didn't need to take the fox down with you," he said. "We can use our last bit of chakra to see Naruto one more time." "Huh?" Kushina replied, confused. She tilted her head up so she could look at her husband. "I'll seal your last bit of chakra in Naruto with an 8 trigram seal," Minato explained. "Then I'll lead the nine tails away with a seal only a non-Jinchuriki like me can use, the dead demon seal." Kushina's eyes went wide as she realized what her husband wanted to do. "But that user will be. But I'll only be able to seal half the fox's power, its jutsu too great. It's physically and conceptually impossible to seal it all," Minato told his wife. "I can't let the nine tails be revived without a Jinchuriki, the balance of tailed beast be destroyed. But with the dead demon seal, I can permanently seal half the fox's power along with myself. And remaining half." He paused and looked down at his son as he remembered something his own sensei, Jiraiya of the Densetsu no Sannin, had told to him about the destined child. "I'll seal remaining half inside Naruto with the 8 trigram seal." Kushina looked at him as if he had gone mad. She really wanted to yell at him for suggesting something like that, but Minato didn't give her a chance to protest. "I know what you want to say, but Jiraiya-sensei spoke of the world undergoing a revolution, and with it, a great disaster," he continued to calm his wife down. "Tonight, I've the two things, the first that masked man, the one who attacked you, he is the harbinger of disaster." He looked down at sleeping face of his son. "And Naruto will be the one to stop him." The Jinchuriki who will blaze the trail to our future. I just knowed. He carefully put baby Naruto to the ground. At that time, with his trusty companion Enma in his staff form, Hiruzen landed in a crouch just outside the barrier that Minato and Kushina had made to protect the village from the fox's destructive capabilities. But Minato, Kushina said, as she tried to protest his crazy idea. Have a little faith. He is our son after all, Minato told Kushina, feeling confident in his decision. He flashed through the 9 hand seals to mold his chakra to call the Shinigami. The spectral spirit eater Aka Shinigami hovered behind Minato. Shinigami was much larger than any average human. He possessed long, shaggy white hair, which was wrapped around Minato's soul, from which 2 red horns protrude, and dark grayish-blue colored skin. It was draped in large white garments and carries a set of prayer beads, and had a tantrum in its mouth. After I finish the Death Demon seal, I'll place your remaining chakra into Naruto as well, Minato explained. You'll meet grown-up Naruto sooner than you think. The time will come when he'll attempt to take control of the fox's power. I want you there to help him. Kushina said, our son. Minato looked down at sleeping face of his son. That's why. I don't want him to bear such a heavy burden all on his own, he said. But why the dead demon seal? Kushina shouted at Minato for his stupid plan. There's no reason for you to die. Just so, I can meet him for a few minutes when he's older. I wanted you to be there for him. I wanted you to raise him. Why are you sacrificing Naruto? Just to preserve the balance of the tailed beasts to save the village and the country. Why are you sacrificing yourself to me? Turning your back on the country, on the village is just as bad as abandoning a child. You should understand you saw your own country fall apart. You know the pain of growing up without a home of your own, and you know we are a family of shinobi, Minato said. Besides, even if I lived I could never substitute for you. Kushina looked at her husband questioningly. He knelt down in front of her. There are things Naruto needs to be told, things I could never say myself. That's the mother's job and I need you to carry it out. Even if you only have briefest of moment to do so, he continued. This isn't just for you, this is for Naruto. He picked up his baby once more and settled right in front of his wife. Dying to make a better life for his son, that's the stuff you let the father handle. Understanding slowly began to manifest on Kushina's face, but she still tried to steel her eyes in a last-ditch effort to go with her plan to save her son from the life of Jinchuriki, a life of neglect and hatred. She was one of the very few Jinchuriki who had normal life compared to others. From his place, Hiruzen was finally able to get a glance of something. In fear, he gasped, those marking it can't be the Death Demon seal. 2 of Leaf's Jounins jumped down beside their previous military commander. What's happening, third? One Jounin asked. We're too late. They've put up a barrier around the 9 tails, Hiruzen said. He punched on the barrier, but nothing happened. It was too strong to penetrate, even for an experienced ninja like him. Whatever they're doing alone. The devourer of spirits shoved its hand through Minato's stomach and grabbed the monstrosity that towered over him. The fox, who was unable to speak due to Kushina's chakra bindings, mentally cursed when he felt his power being ripped into 2. Seal, Minato said. The 9-tailed fox roared as he felt half his life force forcibly pulled out of his body with no way to prevent it. As the 9 tails yin chakra sealed into Minato, causing the fox shrunk in his size. My body's gone numb. What a heavy chakra, Minato thought, gasping. It's the Death Demon seal. I can't believe he actually used it. Hiruzen breathed in shock. It was the most powerful self-sacrificial jutsu for a reason, but to see such a powerful sealing jutsu used against a tail beast was breathtakingly scary. But the fox remains. He didn't seal all of it, one Jounin said. But it shrunk. Suddenly, a cat-masked Anbu landed beside them. Third Hokage-sama, there's an emergency in the village, he said, kneeling down in front of the former Hokage to show him proper respect. What's more important than this? Hiruzen asked, pointing at the demon fox. We spotted Orochimaru in the village, the Anbu informed. What? Hiruzen shouted, giving his full attention to the Anbu. Orochimaru was his student and his greatest mistake and shame. Where? Near the Hokage Tower. The third Hokage's fist clenched as he first hesitated to leave Minato to deal with the 9 tails alone, but Orochimaru was an S-rank criminal, and seeing someone like him in time like this in the village wasn't a good thing. Orochimaru was his responsibility, so he decided to handle it himself. Stay here. He ordered his shinobis before heading toward the leaf to deal with the second problem. Anbu turned to look at both Jounins when the third Hokage had disappeared from his view. Inform him, he said in deeper and much different voice. All 3 leaf ninjas looked at each other and nodded. They changed into identical copies of one person. The person was completely white with short green hair and undeveloped right side alone yellow eyes and only one hand. He had what seemed to be cracks all over their bodies and a zigzag pattern running down his midsection. They gave each other nods again before changing back to their previous form. Now for the 8 trigram seal, Minato said, slamming hand on the ground. In a puff of smoke, a ritual-style altar appeared, a basket and 8 candles around it. I'm going to seal the 9 tails inside Naruto. The ceremonial throne. He plans to reseal me into that child. The 9-tailed fox thought, watching fourth Hokage placing a blonde child on it. Kushina's chakra and strength began to fade as she started to wobble and deep coughing racked through her body. She tried desperately to breathe that caused her control over the chakra chains to lessen. It gave the 9 tails enough time to try a counterattack. Kushina. Stay with me. Minato shouted as he quickly turned from the throne he just had laid Naruto on. The 9 tails raised his right forepaw in preparation to slam it down on the blonde baby, crushing the only thing between his freedom as he didn't want to be sealed again in another vessel. However, his efforts turned to vain as both parents threw themselves in the line of his claw and used their own bodies to stop the claw from reaching their son, fatally wounding themselves in the process. The blood-soaked claw stopped a mere 3 inches above Naruto's chin, and the dying parents breathed a relief. Using her strength and chakra, Kushina tightened her chakra chains around the 9 tails. If a father can do this job, Minato said, trying to ease some stress. Kushina picked up on it and completed, the mother should be even better, right? Shit, he isn't going to be happy. The cat mask Anbu said, whom was watching everything with his subordinates. Damned human, the 9 tails cursed. Ignoring the fox, Kushina glanced behind her at her husband and rasped, "You win first argument you've ever won, I guess you're really serious." Minato chuckled. "Thank you," Kushina, working as quickly as he could, he quickly summoned a black and orange toad with dark markings around his eyes. The toad looked around, freaked out seeing the fox. "Ah, the 9 tails," he shouted before looking at Minato. "And fourth, what the hell happened to you?" "Amatora, I'm entrusting you with the key to the seal, hurry to Jiraiya-sensei, store it with him," Minato said. He plunged his hand into the toad's gut, which caused a scroll to wrap around him. "Badig," Amatora proclaimed as the seal's key rolled up on the scroll. Goodbye. He's making his son the new Jinchuriki, he's definitely not going to be happy about this," one fake Jounin said. Another, his partner, asked, "But where's he?" "He's late," the faked Anbu answered. His eyes weren't leaving from the 9 tails. "That does it," Minato muttered, watching the toad disappear to carry out his mission. "It's time for me to go, Kushina. I'm going to perform the 8 trigram seal and try to leave a little of my own chakra in Naruto too. We don't have much time if you have anything left to say to Naruto." "Naruto?" Kushina bowed her head in understanding. "Naruto, don't be fussy, eaters eat a lot and grow up to be a big boy. Take your bath every day, go to bed early and sleep well." She took a pause and looked at her son. "Make friends, it doesn't matter how many, just make sure they're real friends, people you can trust, even a few is enough. And study your ninjutsu, I was never very good at it, maybe you will be, everyone has things they're good at and things they're not, don't feel bad if you can't do it all. Make sure you listen to your teachers at the academy. And remember to avoid the 3 voices of shinobi, don't borrow money if you can help it. Save what you earn from missions, no drinking alcohol until you're 20, and don't overdo it or you'll ruin your body. And as for women, well, I'm a woman so I don't know what to say, but there are only men and women in the world and you'll want a girlfriend someday. Just try not to pick a weird one, try to find someone like your mother, and the 4th warning, watch out for Jiraiya-sensei." Minato smiled after hearing Kushina's 4th warning. Kushina paused to smile. A blood poured out of her mouth as it rose up from the pit of her stomach. With tears streaming down her face, she spoke again. "Naruto, you're going to experience a lot of pain and suffering, remember who you are, find a goal, a dream, and don't stop trying until it comes true. There's so much more I want to say, to teach you about. I want to stay with you, I love you." Minato sighed, but kept his mouth shut. However, Kushina realized it. "I'm sorry, Minato, I took all our time," she said. "It's okay," Minato replied before looking at his son. "Naruto, this is your dad. Listen to your motor mouth mother. You both are fools," an unfamiliar voice said. Minato and Kushina's half-dead heads jerked up slowly to look at the intruder, only to see nothing. The voice was raspy and far too calm for it to belong to a member of a search party. "But I'm impressed. You both still have some strength to live for a few more minutes, even after all that's happened to you. But then again, bloods of greatest shinobis are running through your veins," the voice continued, coming closer to them. Minato and Kushina searched until a black-cloaked figure caught their attention. His whole face was hidden behind a large black hood. The figure walked forward with a calm, slow gait as his cloak separated just enough for them to see a pair of black shinobi sandals. The man knelt down in front of the blonde-haired baby. "Such a curious child like your parents, you also have the bloods of the greatest shinobis in your veins, but also," the man's hand made contact with Naruto's small head that caused Minato and Kushina gasped in shock as their son's cerulean eyes morphed into a blood-red pupil with a single comma-shaped mark in each. "The bloodline of the Uchiha clan, there's still so much you can do, my little one." Both Minato and Kushina's eyes widened in shock, but only Minato was able to speak a word. How? The cloaked man didn't even glance at Minato. He stood up and looked at Kushina, slightly softened gaze. You look just like your mother, he said. And why mother? Kushina said, coming out from shock. She looked at the man. She coughed as the blood poured out of her mouth. How does he know my mother? How does Naruto have Sharingan? Minato asked. He then glanced back at the Nine Tails, who was glaring angrily at the cloaked man and struggling to free himself from Kushina's chains. We don't have much time left. I need to seal up the nine-tailed fox into Naruto as soon as possible. The man ignored Minato again. He was still looking at Kushina. You've an Uchiha blood that you've inherited from your father, but was sealed by your paranoid mother, he said, shocking both husband and wife again. But you've still managed to pass down your Uchiha blood, my blood, to your son. Both newly made parents became speechless after hearing the man's words. A few moments later, Kushina's mind finally processed this information. You are my father? She said. Yes. The man nodded. Reaching up, he pulled his hood off, revealing his face for the first time. The man was old with his thin and white hair reaching waist-length and shoulder-length bangs framing the sides of his face, covering most of his right eye, but both Minato and Kushina could clearly see that he was missing his right eyes. They didn't know who he was, as they didn't recognize his face, but they could feel his power. As for their answer, it came from an unexpected source. Madara. The Nine Tails roared, angrily, trying to break from Kushina's chains. I'll kill you. Shut your mouth, Nine Tails, Madara said, his voice calm and cold. You're nothing but a temporary existence of coalesced energy that once was a single ultimate form. Minato and Kushina didn't say any words. The man who was standing in front of them was Uchiha Madara, the real Uchiha Madara. The man who appeared more than once in the history and almost never in a good way. Madara as Uchiha Madara, Kushina whispered. Her energy was nearly at its end as she gazed upon the stoic visage of Madara. One of the founders of the Hidden Leaf, former head of the Uchiha clan, the man who had nearly killed the first Hokage. Are you really my father? She asked. She had always wondered who her father was. The answer was now front of her. Yes, Madara answered. Minato's heart lurched, his minutes having turned into seconds as he realized what that meant. If you are real Madara, then who was that masked man? He was a fake, Madara scoffed. Minato coughed blood. I don't have much time left, he thought. He was ready to seal the Nine Tails into Naruto. Do you really think you are making a good choice? Madara asked Minato, catching the Hokage off guard. What? Minato said. I mean, do you really think that old monkey is capable to protect your child from Jinchuriki's harsh life and will give him a normal life? I'm sure Sarutobi will do anything to protect Naruto. Also, the Leaf's people are so friendly. They'll treat Naruto like a hero, Minato said proudly, as he believed in the people of his village. Then you are a fool, as I expected from the descendant of that man. Madara scoffed. You're very naive. People aren't always as compassionate and understanding as we'd like them to be. A Jinchuriki life is filled with pain and loneliness. They are never favored, loved, or welcomed in their home village, but I'll not stop you. Do what you think is right. It's already too late to change your mind. He looked at his daughter's husband and folded his arms. It's easy to transport a Jinchuriki than a tailed beast. I'll extract the Nine Tails from my grandson later. Minato first hesitated as he was surprised at Madara's sudden change in behavior, but he didn't have much time left, so he brushed it aside. 8 trigram seal, he said, sealing the remaining half Nine Tails into Naruto as the 8 trigram sealing marking appeared on Naruto's belly. As payment, Shinigami ate Minato's soul alongside with the Nine Tails in half, which was sealed inside Minato as Minato's lifeless body fell to the ground. The spectral spirit eater glanced at the blonde baby. His hand touched the baby's forehead before vanishing from there. Minato, Kushina said, taking her husband's hand. She shed tears for him. Her chakra chains disappeared alongside with the barrier which she and Minato had made to stop the Nine Tails. Madara picked up his grandson and walked toward his daughter. He knelt down in front her. Your husband is dead, but I can still save you, he said. No, it's too late for me, Kushina said. She coughed violently, spitting out blood from the mouth. She looked up at Madara, smiled. Now, I know my son isn't alone, so I can die peacefully. Take care of him and tell him I loved him. Madara stared at her face in shock for a minute before nodding. I will, he said. Kushina smiled for last time before closing her eyes. She died with a smile on her face. Madara stood up and looked at his grandson. So where is that old monkey? He asked without taking his eye from his grandson. A plant-like entity emerged behind him. He had short green hair, yellow eyes, and his body had 2 different colored halves. His left side was completely white, while the right side was almost entirely black. He had 2 large Venus flytrap-like extensions around him. His name was Zetsu. He's still searching signs of Orochimaru, Black Zetsu said. Good, Madara said. Is all preparation done? Yes, it's ready, White Zetsu said. Madara turned around and walked toward particular place. Seal my daughter and her husband's real bodies and replace them with fake ones, he ordered. Aye, Black Zetsu said. Madara reached the place where 3 White Zetsu's clones were drawing a seal array around one White Zetsu's clone that was lying on the ground and looked almost dead. Madara made a single shadow clone and handed Naruto to him. Real Madara then carefully took some blood sample from Naruto by placing an illusion on him. He walked toward the seal and dropped his grandson's blood on the seal and Zetsu's clone. The other Zetsu's clone placed a jar that contained some Nine Tails chakra which had scattered around place next to the clone. Madara made some hand seals and placed his both hands on the seal. The seal lit up with Madara's chakra. The jar opened and the Nine Tails chakra wrapped around the clone's body. The White Zetsu's clone's body began to reshape and a few minutes later, his body changed into the perfect replica of baby Naruto, except fake Naruto had whisker-like marks on his cheeks. Madara looked at other Zetsu's clones who had transformed into leaf ninjas. Place him on my grandson's place, he ordered. The real Zetsu rose from the ground beside Madara to give him a scroll in which he had sealed the bodies of 4th Hokage and his wife. Then Madara's shadow clone came toward him and handed his blonde-haired grandson to him. Madara looked down at his grandson. Time to go, Naruto, he said, and he disappeared in a puff of smoke. A few moments later, the 3rd Hokage with 2 trustworthy Anbu arrived near their fallen 4th Hokage and his wife unknown to them, the bodies were fakes alongside with their son. 3rd saw 2 Jounins and cat-masked Anbu he had left to watch over the 4th Hokage's family and the Nine Tails. What happened? Hiruzen asked. 2 Jounin and 1 Anbu looked down at their feet. 4th Hokage Sama and his wife sacrificed their lives to seal the Nine Tails into their infant son, the cat-masked Anbu said, and he began to tell everything to Hiruzen. His last request is treat Naruto as hero for keeping the fox at bay. Hiruzen saw Naruto sleeping in the ceremonial throne. He walked toward him and picked him up. He looked at Naruto's face. Naruto, in such young age, you've already lost both your father and mother, he said, sadly, and he looked at his ninjas. Gather our losses and be ready for the funeral. Also, Naruto's heritage is S-rank secret. All leaf ninjas nodded. Madara appeared on a beautiful turtle-shaped island with real Naruto in his hand. A few moments later, Zetsu rose up from the ground next to him. The island they came was very large and appeared to be filled with large forest, which was filled with rare herbs and poison plants, and small hills, plus several taller ones, and a mountain as well. It had a spiral-shaped lake, similar to the Uzumaki clan symbol, in the center. This island was once part of the Uzushi Agakure before its destruction, so it had many hidden Uzumaki clan's temples, secret hideout and many more. So how's Tobi? Madara asked Zetsu while trying to put baby Naruto to sleep. He's badly injured in his fight with 4th Hokage, White Zetsu said. So we gave him a very heavy dose of sleeping serum, Black Zetsu completed. Then make sure he'll not wake up until my work's done, Madara said. I need Hashi's artificial body and power of Jito statue to ensure that my grandson will survive in the process of extraction of the nine-tailed fox from his body. And I don't want Tobi to know that I'm still alive. He got nods from both Zetsu's halves. Good, go and keep your eyes on him. While Zetsu sank into the ground and disappeared, Madara went in direction his secret home that was hidden behind a large waterfall. It was in Madara's old secret hideout, which was now a secret hideout of Tobi. The hideout was under the mountain's graveyard. The place was big and had passages that seemingly led to different countries. There was a giant tree in the hideout. Its trunk bore a strong resemblance to First Hokage, Senju Hashirama. The Jito statue, which looked like a giant earthen-colored humanoid entity with most of its body looking decayed, seated upon a large tree. Madara walked toward a wooden bed with his grandson in his hand. He put his grandson on it. It's time to extract the 9 tails from you, Naruto, he said. 1 month later. On the Uzumaki Island, Madara was in a large cave, standing in front of a huge gigantic stone gate that had Fuinjutsu marking crafted all over it. In its middle, the gate had a large Uzumaki clan swirl. Madara made quick hand seal and slammed his hand to the ground. Very thick wooden planks rose out of the ground before wrapping around themselves and formed another gigantic wooden gate in front old gate to add more security in it. He thought about the things that happened in the last month. His daughter and her husband were dead after sealing the 9 tails into their son, but he had successfully extracted the fox from his grandson using all resources he had. The process was painful and complicated, but it was successful. His grandson was safe. The white Zetsu stretched out of the cave wall. Your grandson is awake. Madara looked at a Zetsu's clone and responded, very well. In a puff of smoke, Madara appeared in old hideout, which was under the mountain's graveyard. He walked toward his grandson who was sleeping on the bed while several tendrils had plugged into his body. They were providing him necessary things to overcome the effect of the Nine Tails extraction. The other ends of tendrils were connected to the large tree, which was actually a non-sentient clone of Senju Hashirama that created by him in order to harvest his unique wood release bloodline limit. It was grown using the Jito statue's power as a catalyst. "So what are you going to do?" Black Zetsu asked, as both halves of Zetsu rose up from the ground. "Tobi is nothing but a distraction, a puppet," Madara said, picking up his grandson. "My grandson, Naruto, is a real player in my plan." The sudden cry of the infant cut off their conversation. Madara looked down at his grandson, Naruto. He shocked to see two blue orbs his grandson changed, taking the appearance red-colored five-pointed star or pentagrams. The ordinary, point-up pentagram was in his right eyes, while the inverted, point-down pentagram was in his left eyes. A moment later, his eyes changed into regular Sharingan before coming back to his original blue eyes. "Impossible. Manjikyu Sharingan." White Zetsu shouted. "In such young age," Black Zetsu said. "It may be caused by Nine Tails chakra we'd extracted from him, or seeing his both parents' death. After all, the feeling of loss and hopelessness is known by all even as young as him," Madara said. He looked at Naruto, smiled proudly. "Naruto, you're really a special child. I certainly look forward to see how this new development would turn out." On Hagakure, the village hidden in the leaves, was a peaceful village. The children were running around and playing. Ninjas were going in and out of the village to go to missions. It had been 12 years since the Nine Tails attack. A lot of ninjas died trying to hold off the Nine Tails. They were all remembered for their courage. "Naruto." A voice rang out through village streets. "Ahahaha. Ha. At 12 years old, blonde-haired boy laughed while running away from two angry older ninjas. The boy had average height, blue eyes, blonde, spiky hair and whisker marks on his face. He wore horrible orange tracksuit and blue sandals, and had green goggles on his forehead. His name was Uzumaki Naruto. He had paint smeared on the right cheek, his face, and he was holding a bucket of yellow paint. If you looked at behind him, a giant mountain, decorated with 4 giant faces in the background of the city, was any indication, it was easy to tell just what the paint had been used on. "Naruto, come back here. When I get my hands on you." One ninja shouted, trying to catch Naruto. "Ahahaha." Naruto continued laughing at two ninjas. Another ninja shouted at Naruto, "You've crossed the line this time, Naruto." Naruto jumped on the top of a building to avoid his pursuers, but his pursuers were ninjas, so they followed him up there. "Haha. Give it up," Naruto said, whom was still laughing at them. "You're just bent because you don't have the guts to do what I do. Do you? Losers. Wannabes. You'll never catch me. Hahaha." The fatigue of the pursuers allowed Naruto to sneak around an alley corner and camouflaged himself in the surroundings before two-leaf ninja could even show up. "Hey. Naruto, hold on," one ninja said, as he and his partner ran in another direction without noticing the boy. When they were gone, the blonde-headed boy took a peek from beneath his camouflage cloth as his big blue eyes scanned the surroundings before declaring it safe. "Hahaha. That was too easy," he declared loudly, throwing his camouflage cloth down. "Oh yeah, Naruto," a familiar voice said from behind him. "Ah." Naruto screamed as he jumped up in the air, kicking his legs, and landed hard on the ground. He looked up and saw his teacher Yumi no Iruka. "Where'd you come from, Iruka-sensei? What are you doing here?" Iruka had a brown hair that he kept in a ponytail, dark eyes, and a scar that runs across the bridge of his nose. He wore the standard leaf shinobi outfit complete with forehead protector. He gave a Naruto heated glare. "No, what are you doing here? You're supposed to be in class," he said before he dragged the blonde back to the academy. From above building, a raven, who had been observing them from the beginning, flew up in the sky. A short figure could be seen standing on the top of 4th Hokage head that was carved into the Hokage mountain. From its figure, it was male. He was watching whole the hidden leaf village with his calculating eyes. He wore a simple black cloak with a hood draped over his head. Only his eyes were visible, and they were blood red with 3 tomo spinning wildly in them. The raven, who had been spying on Naruto and Iruka a few minutes before, landed on his shoulder. The raven was larger than any normal raven. It had purple eyes, and its body was covered with purple-colored markings. "Good work, Karasu-chan," the hooded figure said before looking back at the village. "So this is the village hidden in the leaves." The person's hand reached up and pushed the black hood off slowly, revealing what it had hidden. He looked about to be a 12-year-old fair-skinned boy with spiky blonde hair that had a slight black tint on it. His Sharingan eyes peered out from an angular face. He was really Uzumaki Naruto, the son of Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Kushina, as well as the grandson and true heir of Uchiha Madara. In a certain class, the teacher Iruka was standing in front of the class with Naruto aka fake Naruto tied up on the floor. He turned to Naruto and with a hint of anger in his voice, said, "I'm at the end of my rope, Naruto. You failed the graduation test last time and the time before that. Tomorrow you've got another chance and you're messing up again. Humph. Naruto turned his opposite side, making Iruka more angry. An angry tick mark appeared on Iruka's forehead. Fine. He pointed dramatically at Naruto. Because you missed it, Naruto, everyone will review the transformation jutsu. The whole class said. Even though they didn't like that idea, they still followed Iruka's order and formed a line. Urino Sakura, a pink-haired girl, went first. Alright, Sakura here. Let's do it, she muttered, and she made a hand seal. Transform. There was a poof of smoke, and she appeared as the exact replica of Iruka. Iruka looked at her. Transformed into me. Good, he said, and he wrote something in his notepad. Sakura dispelled the transformation as she changed back. Yes, I did it, she thought, smiling. Another Sakura appeared in her mind. She looked exactly like Sakura, except she was in inverted colors, the gray body color with white lines. She had wide eyes and kanji of inner Sakura on her large forehead. She shouted, "We kicked butt, Shanaru." Sakura looked at her crush, a raven-haired boy with duck butt hairstyle. Sasuke-kun, did you see that? She asked, but her so-called crush didn't even take a glance at her. Iruka called next name, next, Ichiha Sasuke. Sakura went to the back of the line, and Sasuke stepped up with his hands in his pockets. He did the same thing as Sakura did and transformed into an exact copy of his teacher. Iruka gave him a nod. Good, he said, writing in his notepad. Sasuke changed back before going to the back of line, silently as he came. Iruka looked at the notepad to see who was next and yelled, "Next, Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto was standing next to his classmates, a boy with the pineapple-like hair, Nara Shikamaru, and blonde girl, Yamanaka Ino. His hands were in his pockets and seemed too angry. He began to walk toward Iruka when he heard classmates. In his as usual lazy voice, Shikamaru said, "This is a total waste of time, Naruto. We always pay for your screw-ups, baka." Ino said angrily. Naruto didn't even bother to turn back and said, "Like I care, Dadabeo." He walked forward and attempted the transformation jutsu. A certain shy girl, called Hyuga Hinata, wished him good luck. "Naruto-kun, do your best." Naruto placed his hand in the ram hand seal and bended his knees. He concentrated on his chakra, and a fury of chakra surrounded him in a dome. Transform. The cloud of smoke appeared as it covered him from sight. When the smoke started to disappear, a nude girl with a beautiful body, whisker-like marks on her cheeks and long blonde hair tied in a pair of ponytails appeared. She moaned, winked sexily, and blew a kiss at Iruka. Since Iruka was a normal guy, he blushed and flew back as a blood shot out of his nostrils exaggeratedly as the scene was too much for his senses. Luckily, other students didn't see it because of the smoke. Even if they did, a small bit of the smoke was covering her private parts. Naruto changed back and he started laughing, seeing his teacher's hilarious reaction. "Ha ha ha ha. Gotcha, that's my sexy jutsu," he said, and he continued laughing. Iruka quickly got up and ran toward Naruto. He bumped him on his head with his fist while shouting, "Cut the stupid tricks. This is your last warning." Naruto placed both his hand on his head as that punch was really hurt. Outside the classroom, the real Naruto, who was using a camouflage jutsu to hide his presence so he could spy on his fake copy, nearly fell to the ground after seeing the sexy no jutsu. He almost blew his cover and nearly gave his location to the Lee Fanbu. This jutsu isn't completely useless. It can really be useful in a seduction mission or an information gathering mission, he thought, thinking other uses of jutsu. He shook his head and looked at his double one more time. He kinda looks like an idiot in his horrible orange tracksuit. I'll never wear something like that in my life anyway. I need a perfect chance to switch the place with him and a solid story for my new attitude, because I'm not going to act like him. Maybe tomorrow's graduation test will help me. I have this feeling something big will happen tomorrow. He vanished without leaving any trace of him behind. Next day in the morning, in their usual class, the academy students waited in their seats for their instructors to arrive. They all knew that today was the day of the Genin graduation exam, an exciting day for most, however, more so for Naruto, but he was also quite scared and nervous. Clad in his usual attire of a bright orange jumpsuit, he ran a hand through his spiky blonde hair. This was his third year. He had always heard that the third time was the charm, so surely this would not be any different. He felt his heart rate begin to raise when the classroom door opened and the two teachers of the class walked inside, Iruka and another teacher, Mizuki, who had shoulder-length white hair that with a slight hint of blue to it and green eyes. He wore the standard attire of the Leaf Nin, same as Iruka. As teachers entered the class, all students greeted them saying, "Good morning." Iruka with a smile addressed the students. "We will now start the final exam. When your name is called, proceed to the testing room. The final test will be on the clone jutsu," he said. At that very moment, Naruto completely collapsed as he couldn't believe in his bad luck. He was agitatedly grabbed his spiky yellow hair while thinking among lines, "Ugh. That's my worst technique. Great. I'm never gonna pass. He began to rock back and forth in his chair as one by one Iruka would call a member of the class forward and into the designated room. A moment later, the student would emerge. In their hand would be a shiny new leaf forehead protector. Uzumaki Naruto. Mizuki called. Naruto made his way to the front of the room. As he walked, he noticed various students pointing and whispering. Dismissing them, he entered the room to see Iruka writing something down, while Mizuki was doing nothing. They were sitting behind a desk with a few leaf headbands still on the table. Iruka said, "Naruto, you know the test. Are you ready?" Naruto gave a nod. "Alright, get it together Naruto. You can do this. Believe it." He made a familiar set of hand seals. Clone jutsu. A burst of smoke erupted and totally covered him. Iruka and Mizuki were staring at the smoke cloud. As it cleared, they saw 3 more Naruto in the room. They looked perfectly fine. It was a perfect clone jutsu. Good job, Naruto. Iruka was genuinely pleased. However, he noticed Naruto didn't move from his spot. He was staring at his clones. Naruto. I did it. I did it. Naruto thought, looking at his perfectly fine clones. Then he finally shouted, jumping up in the air, "Yada. I did it." He stopped in front of Iruka and gave a victory sign. "I did it, Iruka-sensei." Iruka smiled. "Congratulations, Naruto." "Well, I guess third time's the charm," he said. "Come here and take your headband." "Thank you Iruka-sensei." Naruto said with joy as he ran to the desk and picked up a headband before tying it around his forehead. How? It was his worst jutsu. Mizuki gritted his teeth angrily while looking at the blonde boy. A few minutes earlier before Naruto had gotten his leaf headband. The real Naruto walked into the classroom using a camouflage jutsu and took a seat on the last row, the corner of the classroom as possible, several seats away from the students. He looked at the students, the future of the hidden village of the leaves. Using his resources, he had collected information on all them. With exceptions of few, he wasn't overly impressed with any of them. If they're the Hidden Leaf's future, then the Hidden Leaf's no future, he thought. The whole class was comprised of about 30 students. Most of them were civilian children, and learning ninja arts was just fun or something their parents forced them to do. To the boys, it was opportunity to show others their superiority, and to girls, it was a perfect to find a knight in shining armor. Naruto's eyes fell one by one on each of few with any talent. The first was a boy with his head down, sleeping. He had long black hair that pulled into a ponytail. His attire was rather plain, consisting of a green-lined mesh t-shirt under a short-sleeved gray jacket with green edges and brown pant. Nara Shikamaru, the heir of the Nara clan, lazy as hell but a genius boy. He can use his clan's all basic shadow techniques. He turned his head to a chubby boy next to Nara, who was eating a bag of chips, wearing black shorts, a long white scarf, a short-sleeved green haori, and what looked like underwear on his head. He had spiky brown hair, swirl marks on his cheeks. Akimichi Chouji, heir of Akimichi clan, almost as lazy as his best friend, Nara. His hobby is buying and eating snacks. He can also use his clan's body-changing techniques. His eyes next fell on 2 arguing girls. He looked at the blonde one first, dressed in a purple dress with a lot of makeup on, and her long hair flowing all the way down to her lower back. Yamanaka Ino, heiress of the Yamanaka clan and one of Uchiha's fangirls. She doesn't really take being a ninja seriously. She mostly spends her time on making herself look good for Uchiha, the only reason she's included in this group because of her ability to learn mind techniques from her clan. He looked at other girl. She had a pink hair, wearing a red dress. Harino Sakura no clan, Uchiha's #1 fangirl. Sakura also has close to perfect chakra control, but this is probably because she's close to none. Another thing is my doppelganger has a crush on her. Shivered slightly. He was really an idiot. He looked at last girl in his list, the girl with blue hair and wide eyes, wearing a big jacket. Hyuga Hinata, an extremely shy girl, who just happens to be the heiress of one of the 3 big clans in the Hidden Leaf. She wields Byakugan unless she grows a backbone. Her clan has a good chance of going into civil war. She's also a secret admirer stalker of my doppelganger. He shook his and looked behind her at a boy wearing sunglasses and white coat with a high collar. Aburam Shino, calm, collected, and solitary person, a true hidden genius. He's tremendous potential as a shinobi. He can use most of his clan's insect techniques. I like this guy. He turned around and looked 2 seats next to Shino at messy brown-haired boy with a small puppy with white fur. Inyazuka Kiba and his nin dog, Akamaru. This kid's bark is much louder than his bite. He may be good with his taijutsu and clan techniques but nothing else. He turned toward the black-haired boy, wearing a blue shirt with a big collar and hair shaped similar to a chicken. Finally, the last but not least, my long-distance cousin Uchiha Sasuke, the last loyal Uchiha of the Hidden Leaf. He might be the strongest one in this class, but currently, he's weakest Uchiha alive. He can do Uchiha clan signature jutsu, Great Fireball Jutsu. He took a thinking pose. Blondie and Pinky only got my attention because of their loud voices, he thought, looking around to see any potential shinobis other than them. He then noticed Ino and Sakura's leaf headbands. There's no doubt Academy's standard of the hidden leaf has fallen low if fangirls like Sakura and Ino can become top kunoichis. His thought was cut off by Mizuki, who called his doppelganger's name. Let's see what he can do. He sank into the floor. Naruto appeared in exam hall to see his copy's progress. His copy made familiar set of hand seals before shouting, "Clone Jutsu." He is putting too much chakra in that jutsu, he thought. He could sense how much chakra his copy was using for a simple clone jutsu, and it was 10 times larger than normal. Let's help him. He placed a jinjutsu on both academy teachers as well as his double. The smoke covered his double. When it cleared, both teachers and his copy saw 3 more Naruto in the room. As for real Naruto, he saw real effect of his double's jutsu. He couldn't help but sweat dropped when he saw a single clone, a rather pathetic one, lying motionless on the floor. He shook his head and turned his attention back to teachers. He noticed Iruka looked pleased while other teacher Mizuki looked surprised. He also felt his anger toward his copy. There's something suspicious about that teacher. The fake Naruto walked out the academy ignoring stares and whispers he was receiving from students and their parents. He was too happy to notice it. 2 women were chatting about their children when they saw him. Their faces scowled as they recognized who the boy was. The first woman said, "There, do you see him?" The second woman replied, "It's that boy. I hear he's the only." She saw a leaf headband on Naruto's forehead. "He is shinobi, now." "What?" the other woman said. She looked at Naruto and saw his headband. What was Hokage thinking? "I mean he's the boy who..." The first woman cut in, "SHHH. We're not allowed to talk about that." "Alright." The other woman nodded. Both of them looked at the Naruto with ice-cold eyes and filled with hatred and contempt, but the boy simply ignored them. He was in his own world. After walking out from the academy, Naruto made his way back to his home, ignoring all villagers' stares that held curiously somehow. When suddenly someone called his name, he quickly turned around to face the direction he had heard the voice. To his surprise, he saw Mizuki. "Mizuki-sensei?" Mizuki gave the attention-starved boy a gentle smile and told him to follow him on the balcony of a tall building. Mizuki turned around and looked at Naruto. "I'll be quick about this, Naruto. I'm here to give you the real genin exam," he informed. "What?" Naruto was surprised. But..." Mizuki smirked, enjoying the boy's surprise. Oh, he was going to pull this off after all. "Did you really believe that just a simple clone would be enough to become a genin?" "No, I don't know," Naruto said, still confused and now shocked. "Good luck, because this isn't a cakewalk, Naruto. Your test is a mock-up of the infiltrate and steal situation, just like you've been taught at the academy," Mizuki said in a superior tone to make sure the boy would believe him. "What's the objective?" "You've to infiltrate the Hokage's tower and steal a particular scroll. Don't worry, you'll have a fair chance for this work. The security is low tonight. I mean, nobody expects a fresh genin to do this for real," Mizuki explained with earnest expression. He pulled out a small scroll. "Here are your instructions and follow them carefully. Destroy the scroll after memorizing it." Naruto took the scroll. This action got a chuckle out of Mizuki since the kid didn't know what he was up to. Unknown to both of them, a familiar raven was watching them from a safe distance. The real Naruto appeared in the forest surrounding the hidden leaf. A sudden crashing sound caught his attention. Skidding to a halt, he craned his head upward just in time to see his double, with what must be the forbidden scroll in his arms, slammed full force into his teacher Iruka. "Naruto," Iruka muttered, getting back to his feet. "How did you know I wasn't Iruka?" With a poof of smoke, Iruka was gone and replaced by a familiar white-haired ninja Mizuki. He had a sinister look in his eyes. "Simple." Naruto smirked, leaning heavily against a tree. "Because I am." With a second poof of smoke, Naruto changed into real Iruka. "I knew those two were fakes. It is too easy for me to see through a simple illusion," Naruto thought. "But question is where the hell my stupid copy is." He concentrated to find his doppelganger. "Found you." He disappeared and reappeared on the top of tree. He looked down to his double was behind a tree. Perfect. He vanished with rush of speed and appeared in front of his copy. What Naruto's copy was about to speak, but the real Naruto put a hand on his head. Naruto looked at his doppelganger with his Sharingan, paralyzing him. "You fulfilled your usefulness." "Thank you," he said. His copy's form distorted and sucked into the vortex that had opened up from his eyehole. "Well, I'm lucky. I know how to trick the old monkey's crystal ball." He tapped the seal on his neck and 3 whiskers marks appeared on his each cheek. The seal was a Jinjutsu seal that worked same principle of Tsunade's permanent transformation. "Master, you forgot to wear an orange jumpsuit like your copy," Karasu said telepathically with slight amusement in her voice. She was standing on an orange jumpsuit which looked similar to Naruto's doppelganger had worn. "Where the hell did you get that jumpsuit?" Naruto asked. "From your copy's cupboard." "How many jumpsuits he has there?" Naruto asked while his left eye twitched in annoyance. "He has total 5. "The first thing in my list is burn them all down," Naruto said, lifting the jumpsuit in disguise. "It's first and last time I'm going to wear this." Naruto appeared behind tree, some distance away from Iruka and Mizuki, holding the forbidden scroll in his arms, which he had gotten from his double. He moved close enough to where he could hear what they were saying without being seen. He heard Karasu's voice in his head. "Master, the third Hokage is watching you in his crystal ball." As he suspected anything, Naruto replied telepathically. "No, not yet," Karasu answered. "Good, keep the eyes on him and reply back if you find something odd in his behavior," Naruto said. There was seriousness in his voice, but he wasn't showing it on his face. "We can't take him lightly, after all he's the third Hokage of the Hidden Leaf for nothing." Mizuki broke the silence first and laughing evilly, said, "Haha, you'd even transformed into what killed your parents to protect him. I won't hand the scroll over to someone like you." Iruka shouted. There was anger in his voice. "You idiot. Naruto and I are same," Mizuki replied with a smirk. Iruka didn't understand what Mizuki was talking. He had become confused. Meanwhile, Naruto Aka, the real Naruto, was listening to this conversation with bored expression. Mizuki continued, "There's no way that demon fox wouldn't try to use the power of the scroll. Unlike what you're assuming." "Yeah," Iruka said. "The demon fox would do that." Naruto, who were listening to them, deadpanned. Are they really serious? Why would a giant fox need a jutsu when he could create tsunamis and earthquakes with a single swipe of his tails? Iruka took a deep breath and continued, "But Naruto is different. I've acknowledged him as one of my excellent students. Well, fake or not, he wasn't bad as some other students in the class. He'd only needed a proper guidance or a good teacher to become a good shinobi," Naruto thought. But it's too late for thinking about him now. He may not be the hardest worker and he's clumsy and none accepts him, he already knows what it is feel pain inside your heart, Iruka said, proudly. He isn't the demon fox. From his hiding spot, Naruto looked at Iruka. He really likes my doppelganger, he thought. And he's right. If he was the Nine Tails, then where was his 9 tails? He's member of the Hidden Leaf Village, Iruka continued, smiling. He's Uzumaki Naruto. Mizuki cursed mentally as he looked angrily at Iruka since he had nothing to say. Well, whatever. He unbuckled his huge shuriken. Iruka saw shuriken and tried to move, but his wounds were too extensive. He yelled as the pain increased. He even started to bleed more. "Iruka, I said I would take care of you later, but I changed my mind," Mizuki exclaimed as he held out his shuriken. Finally, Naruto thought, getting ready to show his acting skill. Mizuki readied his aim, spinning his huge shuriken rapidly. "Hurry up and die." He screamed as he took a big shuriken with initiation to throw it toward Iruka, but a heavy fast-moving object suddenly slammed into his head, making him imbalance and stopping him throwing his shuriken. Iruka widened his eyes as he recognized famous orange jumpsuit. "You want scroll, right? Then take it," Naruto said. He picked up the forbidden scroll that he had thrown at Mizuki. He lifted it up and slammed again into Mizuki's head, sending traitor away from him. "You idiot. Why did you come out? Run away." Iruka screamed. "It was a nice shot. You brat. I'll kill you," Mizuki shouted as he stood up, splitting blood from his mouth. "Not before I kill you," Naruto replied, showing a fake anger to fool everyone who were watching him. Mizuki laughed. "Haha, I'll kill someone like you in one shot," he said. "Try it, trash." "I'll return the pain 1,000 times over," Naruto said in the same expression. "Then do it. Demon fox." Naruto mentally smirked and made a cross-shaped seal. Kage Bushin no Jutsu. There was a large puff of smoke and a lot of his copies appeared around Mizuki. Mizuki's eyes widened in the stock. "Wow. What's going on?" he said, taking a step back in a fear. "What's wrong? Weren't you going to kill me in a one-shot?" Naruto taunted. He was smirking inside. "This is going to be fun." "Naruto, you have," Iruka thought with wide eyes. "Well then I'll start, okay?" Naruto said as he snapped his fingers to order his clones to attack. "Good night and sweat dream, Mizuki-sensei." Iruka smiled and thought, he really did divide into more than 1,000 each was a real body and not an illusion. Maybe he'll really suppress all previous Hokage. Phase 1 is complete. Time for phase 2, Naruto thought, looking down at all that was left of Mizuki. His clones had beaten him to bloody pulp. Suddenly, two Anbu Owl and Tiger jumped down in front of Naruto. "Uzumaki Naruto, come with me," Owl said. Without giving Naruto any time to speak, he grabbed the blonde's shoulder and picked the forbidden scroll up. He disappeared with them in a puff of smoke. The other Anbu tiger grabbed Iruka, who had lost his conscience because of the poison that was on Mizuki's weapon, and put him on his shoulder and signaled other Anbu in the area to pick up the traitor before disappearing in the same manner the previous Anbu had done. Around 15 minutes later, Naruto was in Hokage's office with Anbu Owl. Hiruzen took the scroll from Owl and set it down next to his chair. "Thank you, Owl. You may leave now," he said. The Anbu agent bowed down slightly before disappearing via the body flicker jutsu. "Naruto, are you okay?" Hiruzen asked with concern in his voice. "I am fine, Hokage-sama," Naruto said to the third, showing his fake anger in his voice. "Mizuki told me your little law about me. So you know about your burden," Hiruzen said with guilt. "Then please explain to me why would you lie to me in my whole life? Were you ever going to tell me the truth?" Naruto asked. He didn't change his expression. "I was, after you became Chunin," Hiruzen said, sounded weak. Naruto snorted, but inside he was smirking. "It's working, but I need to be careful." Hiruzen sighed sadly. "I'm sorry, Naruto. I was just trying to give you a normal childhood. You were just a baby, and no one could expect a child to be able to handle that knowledge. The law I made was to give you the chance with your generation, since it was obvious that the adults were quite against you," he said. "It didn't work, did it?" Naruto asked, faking all emotions to make sure the third Hokage would believe him. "I'm sorry, my boy. I tried my best, but even I can't make people love someone just like that. No one can. In time, things will be better. Trust me, Naruto," Hiruzen said with much hope and conviction in his voice. "It wasn't you who was hated by everyone in the Hidden Leaf without knowing reason behind it. It wasn't you. They all glared at me, they shunned me as soon as they saw me. Like I was disease, they feared I." Naruto looked down with shadow covering his eyes. "I hate him. I hate the fourth Hokage for giving me such burden without thinking about me. I hate the position of Hokage." He shouted, showing so much anger and hate toward fourth Hokage and Hokage position, which was actually fake. "Sorry, Dad. You know I love you too, Mom." He turned around and walked toward the door. "Goodbye, Hokage-sama." He left, slamming the door behind him while thinking, and the best actor award goes to Uzumaki Naruto. Hiruzen was shocked at Naruto's sudden outburst. He didn't even move from his seat as he was completely speechless. Naruto didn't want to become Hokage. It was like Orochimaru wanted to redeem himself, or Jiraiya wanted to stop peeking on females, or Tsunade wanted to drop her gambling and drinking habits. It was really disturbing and shocking. "I'm sorry, Naruto." He took a deep breath and clapped his hand to call his Anbu. Owl walked inside the office. Hiruzen stared at his agent hard and said, "Follow him and just make sure nothing happens to him." It was a hard day for him. Owl nodded and vanished using the body flicker jutsu. Naruto returned back to where his blood clone lived. He had decided to look around the place. Entering the building, he found the hallway vandalized and covered in graffiti with words and slogans stating such things as "Die demons come," "Go back to hell." And the list went on as the slogans became cruder and rude. "And Dad wanted me to live here," he thought, shaking his head. "Master, an Anbu agent is following you," Karasu informed telepathically. "I know," Naruto replied. "Handle him. Cast a Jinjutsu on him. I don't want his interface in my work." Reaching the apartment, he opened the lock of the door and entered the apartment. Closing the door behind, Naruto, even with the lights turned off, saw apartment. It was small and messy with dirty dishes, kunais, shurikens, weights, dirty clothes, and empty ramen cups all over the place. "This is my doppelganger apartment, that's it. I'm not staying here," he thought, but he decided to take a look around for future use. Seeing how sloppy and messy the place was, he created few shadow clones and put them to work in cleaning the place up and wiping away the reviling graffiti that were on the walls in the hallway. Having seen enough, he vanished from sight in a swirling vortex as he knew Karasu had already taken care of his observer. Still, he had left one extra clone there for extra security. In the swirling vortex, Naruto appeared on the Uzumaki Island, not far away from a beautiful lake with sparkling clear water and a waterfall. He jumped up and landed on lake water. Instead of sinking to the bottom of the lake, he stood on the top of water. Walking toward the waterfall, he bit his thumb and quickly made some hand seals before slamming hands on the surface of water. The blood-red seal materialized on the water surface, which parted the waterfall in half, revealing a pitch-black passage behind it. He went inside. After a few minutes of walking, he finally reached the end of the passage and entered a huge hall, filled with many doors that led to many important rooms like bedrooms, library, storage room, etc. The hall also had several paintings, expensive-looking furniture, etc. Home sweet home. Next day. Naruto stood in what looked like a large garden filled with cherry blossom trees, a beautiful sparkly lake so clear that you could see the little fish swimming about, and a little bridge that stretched across. The grass was incredibly green. Small flowers were making an almost magical atmosphere there. He walked in front of his parents' grave with bouquets of different flowers in his hand. "Hello, Mom, Dad," he said, giving his true smile as he knelt down to the ground. "Yesterday, I went to Hidden Leaf to switch the place with my copy. There, I saw the life of Jinchuriki. And what I saw it was living hell. Grandfather was right about you, Dad. You were very naive and stupid who blindly believed in the Leaf people, but who cares about it? I didn't live that kind of life. Love you, Mom, Dad." He put bouquets on the graves and stood up, then last time looked at their grave. He vanished and appeared in front of another grave. This was grave of his grandfather, Madara. "Hello, grandfather," he said as he remembered his grandfather's last words. Flashback started. 10 years old Naruto was looking at his grandfather, Madara, who was the ground, clutching his chest as blood poured out of his mouth. "What's happening to you, Grandpa?" he asked with worry. "I am dying, Naruto," Madara answered. Naruto said, "But I can." "No, Naruto. Save your energy. I'll come back in few years, so wait for me. Just stick with our plan of peace," Madara said. "Promise me that." He saw Naruto nodded. "Good." He smiled. A large amount of chakra erupted from his body and entered young Naruto's body. "Take care." Flashback ended. "I promise you anyone who will get in our way of peace will be crushed," Naruto said. A dark entity materialized behind him. His eyes morphed into Sharingan. They changed again into their upper form Manjikyu Sharingan. Red-colored 5-pointed star or pentagrams. The ordinary, point-up pentagram was in his right eyes, while the inverted, point-down pentagram was in his left eyes. 1 week had been passed since the betrayal of the academy teacher Mizuki. But other than that, nothing major had happened, except Iruka had been hospitalized because of poison. After spending a week in the hospital, he was perfectly healthy condition and ready to teach the next generation, but he had one thing left to do before that. He needed to assign teams to his old students, which had been postponed because of his health. And it was that day. At Ninja Academy, Naruto, who had taken his doppelganger's place, was sitting in the middle row. No one had shown yet he was alone in the classroom. He didn't really care about it. He had burned all orange jumpsuits. There was no way he could wear them, so he was dressed back in his old, favorite, and baddest outfit according to both Zetsu's halves. He wore a black short-sleeved, zipper-less hoodie with red lining, and on the back of it had a red Uzumaki crest. Under the hoodie, he wore a chainmail mesh shirt. His pants and shinobi sandals were just as black as his hoodie. In his hands, he wore fingerless gloves and had a leaf forehead protector tied around his left arm and 2 ninja pouches strapped to his right thigh and left hip. He was bored, extremely bored. It had only been 10 minutes, but it felt like hours. "I wish Zetsu were here. They're pretty entertaining sometimes," he thought, drumming his fingers on the side of the bench. He was still stuck in his musings as one of his classmates entered the room. After sensing another chakra, he looked up to see Nara Shikamaru looking at him with a raised eyebrow. He simply dismissed him and closed his eyes. Naruto, what are you doing here?" "This is for graduates only," Shikamaru asked the blonde while looking up and down at completely new Naruto. "And what's with the new look?" Naruto didn't say anything for the first few minutes, and then he opened his mouth to ask, "Did you say something, Shikamaru?" In another part of the hidden village of Leaf, a silver-haired man was reading an orange book while walking toward the Hokage Tower. The man suddenly stopped and looked up in the sky. "I feel like my ideal student is calling me," he said to himself. He shook his head and went back to reading his book. Suddenly, a green-clad man appeared in front of the silver-haired man. "I challenge you, my eternal rival," he shouted top of his lungs. Did you say something?" the silver-haired man asked in a bored tone without looking up from his book. "Curse you and your hip attitude." The green-clad man shouted again and started to cry in anime tears. Back to Ninja Academy, Shikamaru's sweat dropped. "Never mind, troublesome blonde," he muttered as he walked toward his seat. Something isn't right with Naruto, and what's wrong with his eyes? They look so much different than before, he thought, but decided to drop the subject because it was too troublesome. "Master, he's become suspicious of you," Karasu informed while watching the behavior of young Nara from the shadow. She could judge the people by their behavior. "Yes, I know. He's good," Naruto said. "Send someone to keep eyes on him." He rested head on his forearms and fell asleep. A half hour later, 2 high-pitched voices, who were arguing about who got in first, woke up Naruto from his nap. He looked up and saw Blondie and Pinky. He dismissed both of them immediately. They were not even worth his time. However, it seemed fate had in mind quite another thing for him. "Naruto, move your ass. I want to sit on the other side of you. And you can't impress me with your new clothes." Sakura screeched angrily at the Naruto. She was completely unaware that she was screeching at one of the deadliest people alive. Lucky for her, Naruto wasn't offended by it. He didn't even consider her a threat. She wasn't even bottom of his list he had considered threats. But where'd she get the idea I like her? Oh, right. My idiot doppelganger had a childish crush on her. He then noticed Sakura still screeching at him. Irritating with her constant screeching, he said, "Haruno, will you shut up? Didn't your mother teach you how to talk to others?" An unnatural silence spread through the room, one would have heard a pin drop as entire class, even Sasuke, who was sitting next to Naruto, looked at Naruto with wide eyes. Entire class knew that Naruto had a not-so-secret crush on Sakura, so this was really shocking to all of them. They were more surprised when they saw Naruto's new look. Meanwhile, Sakura couldn't believe on her ears as she opened and closed her mouth in a shock. Naruto turned his head slightly to look at Sasuke. He smiled devilishly as a wonderful idea entered his mind. "Haruno, here's your seat," he said, stunning everyone again with his sudden change in attitude. He stood up, ignoring everyone's surprised and shocked faces. He sat down next to Shino. Sakura's mind started to process. Forgetting everything that had happened a few minutes before in the class, she yelped happily. She gave Ino, her rival, victory sign and sat down next to Sasuke, so much to boys' irritation. Naruto looked at Sasuke while smirking inside. He was enjoying Sasuke's horror-stuck face when remaining fangirls had decided to join Sakura. "I think he's gay. From my information, even Itachi had girlfriend before he killed her with the rest of the Uchiha clan." Iruka entered the classroom and scared away all Sasuke's fans, as Sasuke signed in relief. "Starting today all of you are shinobi, but you are still genins. The hard journey that lies ahead has just started," he said. "Now, you will soon get mission to help the village, so today we will create 3-man teams. And each team will have a few jounin senseis. You will follow your sensei's instructions in order to successfully complete your missions. We tried to balance each team's strength." He picked up his notebook from the table and began to announce the teams as Sasuke's fans waited to know who would among them would end up on his team. There were a lot of possibilities. Iruka announced the name of the next team. "Okay, next is Team 7 Haruno Sakura, Uchiha Sasuke." He winced as he heard the little banshee screaming in the victory. "And Uzumaki Naruto." Naruto groaned and slammed his head against his desk. "What the hell? That old monkey put me on the same team as Uchiha and his loyal fangirl. I could work with Uchiha, but Pinky, she's annoying." After announcing all teams, Iruka closed his notebook and said, "Okay, this afternoon, we'll introduce your jounin sensei. Until then, take a break." An hour had passed. The classroom sat empty save for Team 7, as all other students had departed with their respective jounin senseis. Sakura was feeling slightly upset that their sensei was late, but it gave her time alone with her beloved Sasuke-kun. Her stomach still had butterflies at the thought of the many months when she and Sasuke would be in close proximity. Still, it would be best to start the romance early, before some of the other girls made their move on her Sasuke-kun. "Nah, Sasuke-kun, isn't it wonderful we're on the same team together?" Sakura asked, blushing. "After the meeting, maybe we can go somewhere together and get to know each other better." "No," Sasuke told her, flatly. Naruto shook his head. It's her 5th times of asking him the same thing but in different manner. Man, it's quite amusing to watch, he thought. Another half hour had passed. Still, there was no sign of Team 7's jounin sensei. "Master, your jounin sensei is Hada Kakashi," Karasu informed Naruto. "Thanks for information, Karasu-chan," Naruto said before cutting off the link. "It means I have to wait another 1.5 hours for him. Well, I'm hungry anyway." He stood up and started to walk toward the exit door. "Where are you going, Naruto Baka?" Sakura asked after seeing Naruto was going somewhere. "I'm leaving, it's obvious our sensei isn't going to show up soon," Naruto said in bored tone. "You can't go," Sakura screeched. "Then watch me, Haruno." Naruto threw some smoke pellets on the ground. Instantly, the pellets blew up, causing a large cloud of dark gray smoke. When the smoke cleared, he was nowhere in sight. "Sasuke-kun, what should we do now?" Sakura asked. Hopefully her Sasuke-kun would have a solution on this. "Who cares what dope does?" Sasuke said, taking one cool pose, which he had practiced in front of a mirror. "Sasuke-kun is so cool. And I'm completely alone with him," Sakura thought, blushed, as she looked at her love interest dreamily. Another 1.5 hours had passed. Sakura was quiet and slouched in her chair. Sasuke still looked cool. They perked up as the door of their classroom slid open and a man entered. Both genins were surprised by his appearance. The man was slouched and had gravity-defying silver hair. But the rest of him was covered by clothes. He wore gloves with cut-off fingers, a standard jounin vest over black long-sleeved shirt, black pants, and sandals. His face was mostly covered by the black mask, and his left eye was hidden below a wide headband that was slanted for that purpose. He looked weird, especially with that small orange book in his left hand. He was Hada Kakashi. "You're late," Sakura yelled. Ignoring her, Kakashi looked at newly made genin. How can I say this? My first impression is you 3 are boring." "Wait, 3?" Sakura said, as she looked her left and right. "But Naruto Baka isn't here." "Then who is he?" Kakashi asked, pointing behind her. Sakura even Sasuke looked it back. Their eyes bugged out sockets when they saw Naruto sitting on a bench and eating ramen. But how? Sakura thought, shocked and surprised. I didn't even feel his presence, Sasuke thought, narrowing his eyes at class is dead last. Kakashi said, okay, you three. Meet me at the roof in 5 minutes. He used a body flicker jutsu to disappear in puff of smoke, leaving Sasuke, Naruto, and Sakura alone in the classroom. 5 minutes later. Kakashi was facing 3 genins on the academy's rooftop. He noticed 2 of them staring at him silently. You seems little hostile. That's because you kept us waiting 2 whole hours. Sakura yelled again. Why did you come late? Oh, I would have been here on time, but a black cat crossed my path so I had to go the long way. Sakura's jaw dropped. What the hell? Punch him in his face. We're not stupid. Inner Sakura shouted, throwing a punch forward. You made right choice. I would have done the same if I were in your place. From what I've heard, a black cat crossing your path is bad luck. And I wouldn't want to meet someone on my unlucky day, Naruto said, completely agreeing with Kakashi. Kakashi turned to Naruto. I've finally found someone who can understand me. Thank you. You're my ideal student, he said with slightly joyous expression. I was joking. I didn't know he would take it seriously, Naruto thought, sweat dropping. Both Sasuke and Sakura stared at both of them like they were nuts. Is this really a jounin? He doesn't seem very reliable, Sasuke thought. Anyway, Kakashi said as his expression suddenly changed 180 degrees, from joyous to lazy and bored. Let's begin with introducing yourself. What do you want to know? Sakura asked. Kakashi said, how about your likes, dislikes, your dreams for the future and thing like that? Why don't you introduce yourself to us first? We already know about each other, but we hardly know anything about you, Naruto said, as he direct came to point. But Sakura and Sasuke surprised again by his new attitude. Alright, my name is Hada Kakashi. I have no desire to tell you my likes and dislikes, and my hobbies aren't your business. My dreams, well, that's not for young kids to hear, hehehe. Kakashi finished his introduction with perverted giggle. So all he told us is his name, Sakura thought. Naruto looked at Kakashi and thought, you're a secretive person, aren't you, Kakashi? But too bad, I know everything about you. My father has written everything about you in his diary. Kakashi looked at his students, only if they passed his test. Now, it's your turn. Let's start on the right, he said. Pinky, go first. Sakura was on right side, so she spoke first. I'm Haruno Sakura, she said with her happy face and tone of voice. The person I like is. She rolled her eyes at Sasuke with a small blush on her cheeks, and my hobby is. She rolled her eyes to Sasuke again. Well, my dream is to Kaya. She screamed in excitement of what would happen in between them in the future. Girls of this age are more interested in love than ninjutsu. Kakashi sweat dropped and asked, and what do you hate? Sakura's expression changed into a hateful. Naruto and Ino. She said before returning her eyes at Sasuke. Naruto rolled her eyes as he didn't care about that. She will die in her real mission if she doesn't try to change herself. Sasuke thought. Okay, Kakashi said, and he turned his head toward the Uchiha. Broody, next is you. Sasuke scowled slightly at the nickname. My name is Uchiha Sasuke. I hate a lot of things, and I don't particularly like anything. What I have is not a dream, because I will make it a reality. I'm going to restore my clan and kill a certain someone, he said. Like I thought, Kakashi thought, as he expected this kind of response from Sasuke. Sasuke-kun is so CCCCCLLLLLLLL. Sakura thought, looking at the crush. A blush was visible on her face. So he wants to kill his brother, Itachi, so badly. Big talk. His brother was already an Anbu captain when he was his age, Naruto thought. Now, last but not least, Blondie over there, Kakashi said, pointing at Naruto. Well, Mr. Pervy Cyclops, my name is Uzumaki Naruto said. Hearing the nickname that Naruto had given to him, Kakashi's visible eye twitched in annoyance. Here I thought you were my ideal student, he muttered under his breath. Sakura let out a small giggle. While giving Naruto a thumbs up, inner Sakura shouted, haha, serves him right, stupid bastard. Naruto continued, I like training and being left alone. I dislike fools and many things. My dream, I like to keep it myself for now. Kakashi blinked. Hokage-sama was right about him. He's been changed so much since the Mizuki incident, but I can see old Naruto, and his playfulness are still there inside him. Sakura and Sasuke also surprised. Everyone knew Naruto wanted to be a Hokage. If it wasn't his dream, now then what was it? So far for the introductions. Tomorrow, we'll start our duties as shinobi, Kakashi said, lazily. What kind of duties, sensei? Sakura asked. Being a top student in a class, she wanted to know her future duties as shinobi. First, we are going to do something with just 4 of us. What is it? Naruto asked, as he knew what Kakashi was talking. Kakashi took a dramatic pause before saying, survival training. Means a hidden test to weed out incapable genins from the field. Not bad, Naruto thought. Sasuke thought, why is our first duty a training? We've had enough training at the academy, Sakura said. This isn't a normal training, this time I'm your opponent, Kakashi declared. Sakura said, huh? What is it? Naruto asked, smirking slightly. He liked Kakashi's style. Uphold the suspense till the last pages. Haha. Kakashi chuckled aloud. What's so funny, sensei? Sakura asked with an annoying expression. It's just that when I will tell you this you are totally going to freak out, Kakashi said, giving the Mai's smile. Freak out? Sakura repeated. Kakashi turned into a scary serious. Of the 27 graduates, only 9 will be chosen to become genins. The rest will be sent back to the academy. This training is very difficult exam with a failure rate of over 66%, he said, stunning Sakura and Sasuke. Hahaha. I told you'd freak out. It means rate of success is 34%. Well, this is enough for me, Naruto said to surprise everyone including Kakashi. There goes my chance to scare them off, the Jounin thought. Then what was point of graduating? Sakura asked. Oh, that was just to select those who have the chance to become a genin, Kakashi informed. Sakura shouted, what? Ignoring her outburst, Kakashi continued, anyway, you have to show your real skill on the training ground. Bring all shinobi tools you have, and skip the breakfast, you might throw up. He handed each of them a paper. The details are on this paper and don't be late tomorrow. Might throw up? Is that tough, Sakura thought, taking a paper from Kakashi. She read the paper and clenched her fist. If I fail this, I'll be separated from Sasuke-kun. This is a test of love. After giving papers to 3 genins, Kakashi disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto looked at his paper. The training ground 3 at sharp 5 am. Well then, knowing his reputation, I'll reach there at sharp 8 am. He turned toward his team and decided to give them some clue. Why shouldn't we eat? If it's survival training then we need energy to confront with him, right? He said. He then turned around to walk toward his home. Maybe, they'll understand it now. Did he tell us that on purpose? Both Sakura and Sasuke thought. At training ground 3, 2 genin Sakura and Sasuke had been waiting for their sensei and their other teammate for last 2 hours and still no sign of them. They had been there since 5 in the morning. Both of genins were angry. Sasuke wanted to scream, but he was maintaining his cool pose because he had a reputation to uphold after all. Meanwhile, Sakura was trying her best to show her best behavior to her Sasuke-kun. But soon, things were about to come to a boil as they were reaching the end of their patience when Kakashi appeared there in a puff of smoke. Good morning, the silver-haired Jounin said, giving his famous eye smile to both of them. You're late. Sakura yelled at Kakashi. Sorry, I lost air, where's Naruto? Kakashi asked while looking around for the blonde. We don't know, Sakura said. I'm here. They looked up to see where the voice had come from and saw Naruto sitting on top of tree branch and eating ramen. Again, I didn't sense him, Sasuke thought, clenching his fist as he looked at Naruto. He's good at hiding his presence, Kakashi thought. Why are you eating ramen, Naruto baka? Sensei told us not to eat anything. Sakura screamed like a banshee. Whatever, Haruno. Naruto said in a bored tone, completely ignoring her. He jumped from the tree and landed to the ground without making any noise. Who's this kid? Kakashi asked himself, narrowing his eyes at blonde. He's absolutely nothing like the report said about him. This is getting ridiculous. Someone in the staff must have messed up his reports because there is no way anyone can change in such a short amount of time. I have to talk to Hokage-sama about this. Deciding to defuse the situation before things would get violent, he said, alright then on to the exercise. He set his pack down and dug through it for a moment before extracting an alarm clock. He fiddled with the knobs before placing it on a nearby stump. Okay, it's set for noon. He put his hand in the pocket and took out 2 bells. Here are 3 bells. Your task is to take them from me before noon. A smirk was obvious behind his mask. Those who cannot get a bell by noon get no lunch. I'll not only tie you to one of those stumps, but also eat right in front of you. So that's why he told us not to eat, Sasuke and Sakura thought as their stomachs grumbled. Naruto snickered and gave them I told you look. But sensei, there were only 2 bells, Sakura said, unease obvious in her voice. Wow, Haruno. You can count. Amazing. Naruto said, making her glare at him. Well, I was saying, Kakashi said. You only need to get 1 bell. There are only 3, so one of you will definitely be tied to a stump. And the person who doesn't get a bell fails. So at least one of you will be sent back to the academy. Everyone's eyes widened, though Naruto's quickly seemed to harden, a contemplative and calculating glint in them. If you want you can use shurikens and kunes. You won't be succeed unless you come at me intending to kill, he finished off happily, as if the thought of being attacked by vicious children was a good thing. Naruto smirked. Intent to kill he'll regard after this over. But you'll be in danger. Sakura shouted as she looked worried on safety of her new sensei. Naruto gave her look that said, are you serious? Well, Sakura, I can take care of myself, Kakashi said, tying the bells to his belt. Just come at me with intent to kill. Not 1 second after he finished speaking, Naruto pulled out a kunai. He drew back his hand and attempted to throw it at Kakashi. But he found the Kakashi was no longer in front of him and his arm was bent backwards with the kunai pointing straight to back of his head. Geez, calm down. I haven't said start yet, Kakashi said, holding Naruto. No way, I couldn't even see, Sakura thought, watching in awe. Sasuke looked at Kakashi while thinking, so this is a jounin. Naruto simply smirked and replied, I'm perfectly calm, Kakashi-sensei. I was just testing the waters. Another voice came from behind Kakashi and a sharp object pressed his back. Glancing behind him, Kakashi smirked under his mask as he saw another Naruto holding a kunai to his back. Having a clone draw me out so you could ambush. You're smarter than you let on, he said. Well, isn't a deception part of being a shinobi? Naruto behind him said. Sasuke and Sakura were gaping at the display of cunningness Naruto had shown. Well, looks like one of you truly came at me with intent to kill. It seems like you're not boring after all, Kakashi said, smiling. Alright then, start. Naruto, who was in front of Kakashi, instantly pulled a kunai with his free hand and spun around while slashing across Kakashi's chest. At the same time, others stabbed him in his back with his kunai. As they expected, Kakashi disappeared in puff of smoke and replaced with a log. You're good, Kakashi-sensei, but I'm still better, the real Naruto said. Sakura was lying on the ground, trying hard to suppress her stomach from growling. The voice said from behind her, hey Sakura. Sakura let out a scream and ran into the clearing, straight into Kakashi. I take it you're ready to put your life on the line, Kakashi said. Sakura screamed again before passing out. Kakashi stared a moment unsure of what had just happened. As he stood there confused, Sasuke made his move. He threw multiple shurikens at Kakashi. The shurikens hit their target, sending Kakashi to the ground. And he turned into a log. Damn. Kawarimi no jutsu. Now, he knows where I am. He showed an opening on purpose and fell for his trap, Sasuke cursed in his mind, and he ran away from his revealed location. He stopped in a clearing, thinking the open space would make it easier to keep up with Kakashi. The moment he stopped, Kakashi stepped out of the trees with orange-colored book in his hands. You really need to learn to read underneath the underneath. Never assume your enemy is simply keeping his guard down. If you do that, you'll die, the Jounin suggested, watching him over his book. Sasuke sent 3 shuriken at Kakashi. The Jounin easily sidestepped the projectile weapons. Such obvious attacks are useless, he said. Sasuke smirked as the shurikens flew past the Jounin, cutting the rope hidden behind him, and a bunch of knives were launched at the direction of the silver-haired man. Hidden trap, good idea, but not enough, Kakashi thought as he jumped aside. The knives lodged themselves on the bark of a tree behind him. Sasuke took the cue and jumped toward the retreating man and delivered a kick on Kakashi's head. The Jounin blocked the kick easily with his arm. Sasuke threw a punch with his right arm only for it to be caught. Using Kakashi's blocking arm as a mount, Sasuke spun around and delivered an axe kick toward Kakashi's face, upside down. Kakashi blocked with his forearm. Sasuke saw the bells, which were right in front of him. He lashed out his hand, trying to grab them only for Kakashi to grab his extending arm and threw him away like a ragdoll. What a guy, I didn't have time to read my Icha paradise. Kakashi closed his book and put it back in the pouch and said, I admit you're good, Sasuke-kun. Standing up on his feet, Sasuke started doing hand seals, ended with a horse and tiger and inhaled deeply. Fire release. Grand Fireball Jutsu. What? A genin shouldn't have enough chakra to be able to perform the jutsu. Kakashi's lone eyes widened. Sasuke put his right hand to his mouth and exhaled a large fireball. The fireball hit the spot where Kakashi was. When the smoke cleared, he saw that there was nothing but the burnt earth. Looking around, he tried to search Kakashi, but he couldn't find him anywhere. He's gone. In the air. No. On the side. Where could he be? Beneath you, Kakashi's voice replied that was muffled for some reason. That was when Sasuke felt someone grab his ankles. Wow. Earth release. Suicidal beheading jutsu, Kakashi said, pulling Sasuke downward as he screamed. Kakashi got up from the ground and crouched down looking at Sasuke, who was stuck with his head above the ground while the rest of him buried in the earth. Good try. Your talents are exceptional, but not good enough. He poked Sasuke's head calmly. Then he pulled out the orange book and started to walk away. Damn you. Get back here. We aren't done yet. Sasuke yelled. Kakashi merely waved his hand without looking back. Damn, the difference is that large, Sasuke thought, trying to free himself from Kakashi's jutsu. Kakashi only walked a short way before he stopped. He looked up at the tree and saw Naruto standing on a branch. "So you've decided to come out," he said. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man. "Something's off about this test," he said, folding his arms. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, masking his surprise with interest. "Oh?" he asked. "I've never heard of a three-man squad before," Naruto said, looking at Kakashi. "A squad always has 3 genins and 1 jounin sensei." "Well, aren't you just full of surprises?" Kakashi said, giving an eye smile. "However, that isn't going to help you to get a bell." "I guess you're right," Naruto said with smirk, and he charged at Kakashi. Reaching into his pouch, Naruto pulled out a kunai and tossed it at Kakashi before going through some hand seals. "Kunai Kage Bunshin no Jutsu," he shouted, creating 20 kunai from a single kunai he had thrown. Kakashi dodged most of them while catching few of them that had come too close to him. Meantime, Naruto had closed the distance between them. He launched a jab at Kakashi's face. The Jounin blocked it with one of his hands. Then he leaned his head back as Naruto came at him with the elbow of the arm he blocked. Naruto increased his speed by channeling chakra into his limbs. That seemed surprised Kakashi. It gave Naruto an opening he had needed as he landed a mediocre blow to Kakashi's ribs. Kakashi quickly jumped back and put his book away. "Looks like I'm not going to be able to read, he's better than I thought." Naruto charged at Kakashi again as he threw a punch toward Kakashi's face which Kakashi easily caught it. When Naruto used his other hand to hit him, Kakashi also grabbed it and locked the blonde's arms in place. "Well, this is unexpected, you are good," Kakashi said in a mild tone. Naruto smirked and said, "Thanks, I just want to say one word, Kakashi-sensei boom." Kakashi's eye widened as blonde boy's clone exploded, forcing him to use Kawarimi to escape. "He knows Bunshin Daibakuha, I thought he only knew the Kage Bunshin." Kakashi didn't get time to think anymore as Naruto jumped up to the tree branch he had landed on and came at him with a kick that he ducked under. However, his eyes widened when another Naruto tried to knee him in the face. He was able to block the attack in time, but it still surprised him. Avoiding Naruto's another kick, Kakashi thought, his taijutsu skill is much better than Sasuke, which is shocking, because his report said, he is a brawler. Kakashi jumped off the tree with Naruto following right behind him, coming after him with a knee, punch, elbow combo that Kakashi successfully managed to dodge and block. Another Naruto suddenly came at him from his blind side, attempting to steal the bells, but Kakashi heard the bells jingle when the clone Naruto got a finger on them. He grabbed Naruto that was behind him, forcing him in his front as other Naruto launched a punch at him. There was a poof of smoke as Naruto ended up hitting his clone. When the smoke cleared, he saw Kakashi was nowhere in sight. "You should never let your opponent get behind you." Naruto's eyes widened as he heard Kakashi's voice behind him. The hidden leaf's hidden taijutsu. 1,000 years of death. He shoved his chakra-encased fingers up Naruto's butt, only for Naruto to explode, forcing Kakashi to jump away from the blast, though he still was singed. Another Bunshin Daibakuha, Kakashi thought in surprise. Was I fighting with the clone whole time, or did he use Karawimi to replace himself? He looked around to search Naruto. He's a lot better than I expected. Suddenly, he heard a bell ring, signaling the end of the test. Looks like time is up. Time's up. 10 minutes later. Naruto and Sasuke were in front of posts, while Sakura was tied up to the last one. Kakashi was standing in front of the while thinking about how his team had done so far. He was honestly disappointed in them. Sakura had fallen for one of the simplest genjutsu he had, when, according to her reports, she was supposed to be the best on the subject of genjutsu. Sasuke, he had to admit, was good. He had managed to set a decent trap that might have worked if he had not taken the fight more seriously from the beginning. His taijutsu form was also good. But the boy was simply too arrogant, believing that he could actually go head-to-head with a jounin. Then last but not least, Naruto, he had turned out to be a dark horse. No one expected him this good, not even him. He used tactics and jutsus that Kakashi didn't know he had possessed. His taijutsu was good, better than even Sasuke's. He also used deception, making him much better than Sasuke, who simply fought head-on. But sadly, he also had failed to see underneath of the bell test. "Well," he started, "I have to say I'm disappointed in you three. You all failed to retrieve a bell. So you're sending us back to the academy, right? Could you fulfill one of my requests before it?" "I want to hold those bells in my hand," Naruto said respectively, pointing at bells on Kakashi's belt. It was really an odd request. Both Sasuke and Sakura gave looks Naruto that said what? Sure," Kakashi said. Seeing there was no harm in it, he decided to fulfill Naruto's odd request and threw both bells at him. Naruto caught the bells, smirked and looked up at Kakashi. "Thanks for the bells, Kakashi-sensei," he said. No sooner had Naruto finished the sentence than a bell rang again, much louder than before. What was that? Sakura shouted. Even though she was tied to the stump, she couldn't shut her mouth. Time's up, the test truly ends now, Naruto answered, confusing everyone. Sasuke asked, what do you mean? Due to his laziness, Kakashi-sensei didn't even check time or the ringing sound he'd heard was really coming from his alarm clock or not, Naruto said, smirking. Hearing it, something clicked in Kakashi's mind. His eye widened. It was faked. Yeah, my clone used another alarm clock to fool you, Naruto answered as he started to explain everything. When I heard about your surviving test, I decided to gather some information on it and you. And I found about your famous bell test form, your eternal rival. Kakashi sighed. Mido guy. Naruto nodded. I knew I couldn't take a bell from you in direct combat, so I decided to use different method, he said. So you set a trap for me, Kakashi said. He was clearly impressed the way he made his plan. An outstanding plan, while real he kept me busy, his clone fooled me with fake alarm clock. He shook his and smiled. I didn't check time and fell right in his trap and gave him both bells before test would truly end. He's a little devil. But this is cheating. Sakura shouted. She had yet freed from her binding. Naruto looked at her. Haruno, we're the ninja, not the samurai. We kill, lie, cheat and steal for the right amount of money, he said. Sakura opened the mouth to say something, but Kakashi cut in. He's right, Sakura, he said. He got those bells fair and square. When did dope become this smart? Sasuke thought. He had heard Naruto's plan and it was really good. I can't believe it, Naruto Baka has actually managed to get bells from Kakashi-sensei, Sakura thought in shock. Kakashi looked at blonde Genin and said, well, you've one extra bell, Naruto. What are you going to do with it? I know your plan, Kakashi, Naruto thought. He tossed one bell to Sasuke and put second one on top of Sakura's head, so much to her irritation. I'm giving both bells to them. You do realize that if you do that, you'll have to go back to the academy, Kakashi warned. No, you got the bells, not me, Sasuke said, getting surprising look from others as he tossed bell back to Naruto. No. It should be me. I didn't do anything in the test, Sakura said as she looked down in shame. Well, I guess the three of you passed, although not in the way I expected, Kakashi said. He cut the ropes binding Sakura to the stump. Surprisingly enough, it was Sasuke who asked the question, let me get this straight, we're ninjas just because Naruto tossed the bells to us. The test was never really about the getting the bells, Sasuke. The bells were just something to divide you and think only for yourself and also blind all of you from knowing true meaning behind the test, Kakashi said. Which is teamwork. Naruto answered. Kakashi just nodded his head, smiling behind his mask. My test was to see if you could look beyond your own desires and work together. Someday you may be faced with a situation where it's either your life or your teammates. If and when that day comes, you would do well to remember that those who break the rules are trash, but those that abandon their friends are worse than trash, he said. Just take today's example. The reason you've passed is Naruto. He gave you the bells so you could pass and showed the willingness to sacrifice himself to let you pass on. Two Genins looked at Naruto, who gave them a smirk that said, you own me. Anyway, just remember what I told you, Kakashi said, smiled. He gave them thumbs up. That ends training, all of you pass. Okay. Starting tomorrow, Team 7 will begin its duties. Sakura gave a large smile as she realized she was still going to be on a team with her Sasuke-kun. Even Sasuke looked slightly pleased. Well, I'll see you all later. I've to report to Hokage-sama that we're now a team, Kakashi said before disappearing in a puff of smoke. Sakura turned to look at Sasuke. She blushed. Hey, Sasuke-kun. Do you want to go out on a date with me to celebrate? She asked, shyly. No, Sasuke told her flatly. Sasuke then turned back and walked away, but like a loyal fangirl, Sakura followed after him, pestering him for a date. All went according to the plan, Naruto thought before he vanished into thin air. Tears inside as he saw Kakashi was still not there. Why don't you all start? Kakashi will probably be several hours late anyway, he said while motioning for them to begin. A Jounin stepped forward, wearing forehead protector like a bandana with a senbon in his mouth. His name was Shiranui Genma. He had brown, shoulder-length hair, which hangs about his face, and brown eyes. Hokage-sama, Team 1 has failed in the test, he said. As he stepped back, Yamashiro Aoba took a step forward. Aoba had dark, spiky hair and was always seen wearing red-framed sunglasses, which obscured his eyes, and said, Team 2 has failed as well, Hokage-sama. They simply didn't understand the principle of teamwork. All team from Team 3 to 6 all were failed to pass tests. Go on, Kurenai-san, since Kakashi isn't here yet, Hiruzen said. Iki Kurenai was young Jounin. She was a fairly tall and light-skinned woman of slender build. She had long, black, shoulder-length untamed hair and very unique eyes that are red in color with an additional ring in them. She nodded and stepped forward. teammate has passed, she informed. Asuma went after her, taking a puff of his cigarette and said, Team 10 has passed as well. He took a step back. Suddenly, a puff of smoke erupted in the room and a familiar silver-haired Jounin appeared. Sorry, I'm late, Hokage-sama. A black cat crossed my path so I had to take the long way around, he said. Several groans were heard at Kakashi's terrible excuse. Really, you would think a ninja as famous as Kakashi would, at the very least, be able to come up with more plausible excuses. Hiruzen just sighed and shook off his annoyance. Just give me your report, Kakashi, he said. Team 7 has passed, Kakashi said, surprising everyone who was present in the office. Hiruzen looked at Kakashi for a moment before nodding. Very well then, all of you are dismissed, he said. One by one, the Jounin began to leave in their unique way. However, Kakashi stayed where he was, snapping his book shut as soon as the other ninja left. Okage-sama, he said. I take it, there is something you still wish to discuss, Kakashi? Hiruzen asked, pulling out a pipe. Yes, sir, I want to talk to you about Naruto, Kakashi replied immediately. Hiruzen nodded. He used a fire jutsu to light his pipe. He isn't quite what you had expected, is he? He asked, taking a few puffs from his pipe. Kakashi shook his head and said, he's far from that, Hokage-sama. I'm not sure whether Naruto, who I just met and fought with, was real or not. He took a deep breath. I'd come in expecting him to be a loudmouth brat with no control over his emotions, but after meeting him, he shattered all my beliefs. Not only was he able to keep his calm during our battle and managed to use a good amount of deception on me during the test, but he'd also used several jutsus that I know he couldn't have learned from the forbidden scroll of sealing and succeed to get bells from me. Hiruzen nodded and motioned his hand to continue. I need to question the competence of the academy staffs. It seems they let the hatred towards the Nine Tails get to them and gave me false information about Naruto and his abilities, Kakashi continued. He's on par with Sasuke's combat skills and far more intelligent than people give him credit for. Hiruzen took a puff of his pipe and let out a sigh. I admit that the information definitely has some bias in it, but none of it is false. Kakashi looked startled. What do you mean, sir? Hiruzen blew out a puff of smoke. You know about the Mizuki incident, right? It was not a question, but Kakashi nodded anyway. Nobody can remain the same after learning such a terrible truth about themselves, one that had been kept secret from them for their whole lives, and another it's only my theory, Hiruzen said, looking at one of his trusted Jounin. Naruto, we all know, was nothing but a mask, the mask of his hyperactivity and general goofy attitude which he used to keep himself from falling into despair because of the loneliness he had felt in his whole life, thanks to the foolishness of the village and me. At first, it was likely more of an act than anything, but over time, it had become part of him. However, the Mizuki incident forced him to reevaluate his life, it forced him out of the mask he had forged for himself. Kakashi's eye lit up with understanding as he nodded. He knew well about metaphorical masks, after all, he was wearing a mask by emulating his long-dead friend Obito, who had given his life to save him during the Third Great Ninja War. But something wasn't right in the picture. But how did he get so strong in such a short amount of time? He questioned. Even if his personality has changed completely 180 degrees, it would take more than a week to learn most of those techniques. At least a month, even for a genius. And how does he know those jutsu? Kage Bunshin I can understand, but Kunai Kage Bunshin. Bunshin Daibakuha. Those techniques are very difficult to learn without proper guidance. You're good, copycat Kakashi. I admit that, an unknown voice said from nowhere. Both Kakashi and Hiruzen became alert. They looked around to find the intruder and they saw a figure rose from the ground like a ghost. Anbu. Hiruzen shouted without taking his eyes from the intruder. He was slightly short and looked like he could be 15, almost 16 years old. He had black hair, wearing a black cloak and mask. His mask was almost completely white, with red and black marking just below its solitary eyehole. It had been completely covered his left side of his face except his mouth and chin. Don't bother to call them, Hokage-sama. They're quite busy in dreams, the intruder said, but before he could continue, he felt the cold steel of a kunai against his neck. Who are you? Kakashi demanded, pressing the kunai on the intruder's neck. I'm nobody, the intruder said, showing no fear. He sank into the floor and rose up far away from Kakashi. But you can call me Ryu. His eyes turned red, showing a familiar Tomo pattern in them. What? Sharingan, Kakashi thought, as his lone eye widened in shock. So he's an Uchiha, Hiruzen thought, narrowing his eyes at the intruder. Kakashi, stand down. He ordered before looking at cloaked boy. What do you want? Ryu smirked and said, I want the fourth's legacy, I want his son. Fourth Hokage don't have any son or any children, Hiruzen stated in a cold tone that would have sent shivers down anyone's spine, but the boy front of him was completely unfazed. Hokage-sama, you know who I am talking about. I am talking about Naruto Uzumaki Naruto, the only child of 4th Hokage, Namikaze Minato, and 2nd Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, Uzumaki Kushina, Ryu said, smirked, shocking both Kakashi and 3rd, but for different reasons. What? Kakashi shouted. Ryu stared at Kakashi. Even with the mask hiding his face, he could see his shock through his widened eye. He laughed. My, you don't know, you see, Naruto is the 3rd Jinchuriki of the Nine-Tailed Fox, Ryu said. Impossible. Kakashi breathed his denial before looking at 3rd Hokage for answer. Kakashi, let me give you a history lesson. During 1st Hokage's battle against Uchiha Madara at the Valley of the End, Hashirama, at some point, gained control of the Nine Tails. To keep the beast in control and gain power for her husband, Uzumaki Mito used a Fuinjutsu to seal the nine-tailed fox within herself, becoming the tailed beast's first Jinchuriki. Toward the final years of her life, it was decided that a new host for the Nine Tails would have to be found, so she selected Uzumaki Kushina for the role due to her special chakra. And Kushina became 2nd Jinchuriki of the fox. Well, you already know about Naruto, Ryu explained. They never had those whiskers like Naruto, Kakashi said because he had personally known Kushina and seen the photo of 1st Hokage's wife. Funny, isn't it? Everyone believes it is because of the fox being sealed inside him, but truth is Naruto was born with those whisker lines, Ryu answered. It was lie, but they didn't need to know. Both Mito and Kushina were able to live happy lives despite being Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails, because no one had known about it. It was closely guarded S-rank secret. Now, you know about Naruto's life in the Hidden Leaf. You should thank your Hokage and his big mouth for it. He is the main reason. That enough? Hiruzen shouted, cutting him in. There was no need to remind him of his mistake and his failure. What do you want with him? Now, nothing in future, I've a plan for him, but meanwhile, I'll make sure he'll follow me. Ryu smirked. Only if I left you alive to do that. Hiruzen said, gritting his teeth as he threw several kunes at him, but to his surprise, they phased right through him like he wasn't even there and stuck on the wall behind him. You can't stop me, Hokage-sama. Naruto trusts me more than he trusts anyone else. Who do you think taught him those jutsu? Ryu asked. He was enjoying seeing shocked faces of both Leaf Ninjas, especially 3rd Hokages. He's a good student. Within a single week, I have managed to fill all gaps in his training that academy instructors had purposely left behind. This is bad, Kakashi and Hiruzen thought, as they knew the negligence of academy teachers were totally going to bite them back in their butts. We seriously need to do something on this, or we'll lose Minato's-san completely, Hiruzen thought. Anyway, I want to say thank you, Hokage-sama. Without your lies, I wouldn't have gotten such incredible asset, Ryu said, who didn't really look thankful. He smirked when he saw 3rd gritting his teeth in anger. Goodbye. Hopefully, we will see each other soon again. He gave a mocking bow before disappearing into a swirling vortex. Is this true? Kakashi asked the 3rd Hokage. Hiruzen said nothing, he just looked down. You lied to me. You knew that Kushina-sen was just like Naruto, didn't you? You kept it away from me, leaving me ignorant like a fool. Kakashi shouted at Hiruzen as his Sharingan eye was spinning wildly like fire. The 3rd Hokage looked suddenly very sad. It was to protect Naruto, he replied, looking like his grandfatherly self. From who? How could I have caused any injury to Naruto? I didn't want him hurt. I watched over him, uncertain in times if he was really himself or not. And you knew as you watched me suffer and let Naruto suffer because of your own damn secret and not even letting him get adopted. Kakashi shouted angrily. He would never forgive 3rd for that. I assumed Minato would have wanted it a secret, but I feel ashamed for having kept it from you, Hiruzen said, looking sorry. But we can't let Naruto be taken from this village, not after what his father did to save it. Very well, Hokage-sama. I'll do my best, but I'm not sure I can fully trust you from now, Kakashi said before he disappeared in a puff of smoke. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed. Kakashi and Naruto might never be able to trust him again. Far away from the Hidden Leaf village, Ryu was standing on the edge of the cliffs, looking down as the waves violently slammed against the razor-sharp rocks at the bottom. His body shifted as it began to melt before he broke up into some kind white-black colored liquefied substance, leaving a short figure, a blonde-haired boy, on the place of Ryu. The boy was none other than Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto cracked his neck and stretched his body. He then turned back to look at white-black colored liquefied mass, to see it started taking a humanoid shape. It took a shape of bald man. The man was tall and possessed a human-like facial features and proper red-colored eyes, but he didn't have a mouth. His body above right shoulder to left hips including his left arm was completely black, while his rest of body was totally white. He also had small spiky protrusions on his shoulders and back. He was one of many artificial humans created using Jito's statue and Hashirama's living clone, but he wasn't a clone of the original artificial human, White Zetsu. His upper body was black because of mutations which was caused by the Nine Tails chakra that baby Naruto had released in the Nine Tails extraction process. He possessed all power of Zetsu even more. However, his body had one weakness: he was mute. He couldn't talk, but he could use sign language for communication. The artificial human put his hand down and started signing. "What's now?" "Nothing," Naruto said. "But if you want you can go, Daiki." The artificial human, Daiki, merged his body with the ground and disappeared. Naruto looked in the direction of the hidden leaf and smirked. "Divide and rule," he said. "Thanks Ryu. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow Yami Naruto for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.